All right. Now y'all know I had to come bringing some of that West Coast gangster sound. Today we have the PhD named Dr. Wilson, who is a molecular biologist, and his YouTube channel is called Debunk the Funk with Dr. Wilson. So since we got Debunk the Funk with Dr. Wilson on, I had to play something that's like real funky. You understand? And um, We're going to have some questions for him. He's going to educate my audience and followers. And we're going to have a conversation about vaccines, health, and nutrition. Nothing too deep, just some common sense science, and just something easy to understand. And we're gonna go here for about an hour and a half. We ain't gonna keep you here all day. But as I was saying, I wanted to get a real professional on. First of all, if everybody can hear me, what's up, Donnie Williams, Jesus Price, Wab Funk? Can you please hit the number 1 if I'm heard clear and I'm seen clear? All right. Thank you, Jesus Price. I see the 1, so I take it that things is all good. So, without further ado, let me bring on Dr. Wilson. Dr. Wilson, we live and in color. How you doing, sir?
Hey, what's up, man? I'm good. How are you doing?
All is great. So I like to stream on Fridays, and I have a little Friday night live. It's a day where there's no football on, and kind of sit back, who stay home on weekends and don't party, and have a conversation to listen to and learn from.
Yeah, I feel that.
Dr. Wilson, tell the people about yourself, where you live, what's your education in, and just what are your credentials in, Dr. Wilson?
Yeah, so I went to grad school to get my PhD at Carnegie Mellon University. Studied molecular biology there. And now I currently live in the Philly area. And I just work as a regular scientist at a biotech company in the area. Just conflict of interest. I don't work on anything COVID related. Nothing with the 2 big pharmaceutical companies. I just got a regular science job. But in my spare time, I got my degree and I want to do more with it. So I want to communicate some science. So I started a YouTube channel. And as someone who used to believe in conspiracy theories, all sorts, all kinds, that's important to me to continue that science communication now that I have kind of gotten my way out of that mindset of believing a ton of conspiracy theories, and just have fun with it. Just communicate with people, talk to them about science, challenge the beliefs, all that stuff. So that's what I like to do with my YouTube channel on the weekends. But during the week, I just work as a regular scientist.
Regular old scientist. So you're not connected. You know how people get to thinking paranoia, which I say pure paranoid and have which paranoia is a mental health condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not connected to big pharma. You're not here to lie on us. You're just here to tell us the truth. And as a people, we're gonna get an understanding and learn something tonight.
Nope. Yep. My job doesn't even know I do the YouTube thing. It's all on my own. So
what kind of conspiracies were you into?
I was big into 9/11 when I was in like high school. Big believer in those conspiracies. I've since moved away from that, but yeah, totally believed that. I'd say that was the biggest one.
What did you get your bachelor's in?
Molecular biology and biotechnology is my bachelor's degree. Yeah, I went to a super small undergrad college in Western Pennsylvania called Clarion. We're talking like Pennsylvania here. Like some people had Confederate flags in their rooms. It was weird, but aside from that, I liked it. It was a nice little college. Got a good education there. Didn't pay much money. So.
And your master's is in the same field?
What's that?
Your master's is in the same field.
So I didn't get a master's. I went straight from bachelor's to PhD.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I've been wrong. I was telling people you're a microbiologist, but you're a molecular biologist. So
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
could explain what a molecular biologist, the definition of that is, what would you say? What do they study?
Yeah, so a molecular biologist is going to study like the basic biomolecules of life. So you got proteins, you got lipids, you got DNA, RNA, things like that are what a molecular biologist is going to really heavily focus on. And it's a really like kind of umbrella term, right? Like there are molecular biologists who are also microbiologists, right? So they'll study the molecules of like bacteria and viruses and stuff. But a molecular biologist is just more like focused in on broad things, things that happen in most cells in life. That's one way to think about it. But yeah, studying like the proteins, DNA, RNA, that kind of thing is what molecular biologists generally do.
So, in honor of Dr. Wilson, I put on my science shirt today. Let me show y'all. Y'all motherfuckers need science.
No pseudo.
No pseudoscience here today. And I am vaccinated, Dr. Wilson. I got the Pfizer.
So did I. Yep.
And let me just bring my guests on.
Mm-hmm.
Montoya, can you hear us? Can you see us?
Coming through loud and clear. Glad to be on, Chief X. Glad to be on with you, Dr. Wilson. So honor.
And we have Unbiased Sports. These are two of my good social media friends. We've been good social media friends for years. We've always respected each other. Montoya has a show called Mental Dialogue where he does interviews and things like that. And I've been telling what the so-called conscious community that when we do debates and live streams and discussions and we have debates, we should go to Mental Dialogue. He's a good moderator. He's always unbiased. We have a guest unbiased. He's always unbiased and fair in his discussions. And that's what I respect about Montoya, aka Black Socrates of Mental Dialogue.
Thank you, brother.
Okay. And let me just start off. We'll kind of rotate some questions. I'm gonna ask him one question first that I'm kind of concerned about. Now, Dr. Wilson, I took the Pfizer. I had 2 shots. On my second shot, that evening is where I felt it. I remember I came home. I came home that after that second shot. First shot wasn't shit, but that second shot, I came home and I sat down at my desk where I'm sitting now, and all I remember is just nodding like this. I started getting sleepy and I had these symptoms. I'm taking my ass to bed. I got to bed. My feet was felt a little like they had a little chill. So I had them flu symptoms. So I'm like, damn, what's going on here? But I understood later on that basically that just means that it's working and your immune system is kicking in. So do you think as a Pfizer vaccine taker that we need to take a booster? Will a booster become necessary?
So right now, what the science is telling us, and y'all know science can change, but right now, the best data is telling us that we don't need boosters. We don't need boosters. If you're older, if you're like 65 and up, you got lots of risk factors and stuff, and you want a booster, fine. It's not going to hurt. But we definitely don't need boosters. So the reason that a lot of people are saying we might need boosters is because we're seeing a decline in antibody levels. But what people need to understand is that's totally expected. That's completely normal. Your body's not going to use all that energy to constantly produce that level of antibodies after you get vaccinated. It's going to drop off. That's a normal immunity. That's going to happen after an infection. It's going to happen after any vaccine. That's just what happens. But what you're left with what you're left with is memory, immune memory, right? So you got these cells called B cells, you got cells called T cells, part of the immune system, that remember seeing what the vaccine showed you. So your body's ready to mount that big antibody response again, much faster than it would be, right? Than if you weren't vaccinated, right? So that's what you're left with, that memory. And that memory is what protects you from disease. That ability to mount that really fast immune response and clear the virus. And that is not fading. That remains around 90% protection. So yeah, we don't, if that starts declining over time, which is possible, that might happen in the future, then it would be like, yeah, we want to boost. But right now it's not necessary. It's not needed. And, you know, there's a whole other side to that where it's like the science says we don't need it. And if you want it, get it. But also it's like, I personally don't feel good getting a third shot when so much of the world needs their first. And, you know, you can get into the whole conversation of like, when you're a kid and your mom's telling you there's starving kids in the world, eat your food. And it's like, well, me finishing my dinner isn't going to help a kid get fed, you know? So there is that. Like, if we have all the resources and vaccines are literally going to waste every day because people aren't getting them, then yeah, sure, you can justify getting a third shot. But me personally, it's like I want those shots to go around the world. I want them to go to places that need them. I've got family in Southern Africa who, you know, their communities don't have good access to these vaccines, and they want them, but they can't get them. So it feels weird if we have too many and we're thinking about third shots and they don't have their first. But that's just a little personal touch at the end of that.
Unbiased Sports, go ahead and talk to Dr. Wilson.
Yeah, like you two, I've been vaccinated, Pfizer, both shots. Nothing severe, just a sore arm. Nothing at all, no fever, sore arm. That's it. Tighten up. I feel like you worked out for the first time in months. You know, get stiff, get locked. So that was my experience, but nothing severe. So that's why I'm an advocate of vaccinations. One of the reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I remember when I got mine, I think after the first shot, that night I had like a stuffy nose. That my wife will tell me that's normal for me. But then after the second shot, I felt a little achy, just felt tired for one night, and that was it. Next day I felt fine. But
we get those,
experience might be different.
We get those feelings because it's like actually working. Your immune system working, and you know.
Yeah, it's a big response your body's making. It's learning how to fight a new thing. So that fatigue, that soreness, maybe a fever, all those things are part of the immune system working. Just like when you actually get sick and you get tired, you get a fever, it's not the virus or the bug making you have a fever. It's your immune system reacting to it that's giving you a fever. So yeah, it's exactly that kind of thing.
Montoya, you got any questions, something you want to say and add?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want to add to the booster conversation and particularly the immune response that y'all are talking about. And it's just again, just trying to create clarity. Like love what you do, Dr. Wilson. When Chief X told me about it, I'll definitely subscribe to you. I'll be following you from now on. But I would like to highlight with the booster, even with you highlighting that the science, in a sense, at this moment, is not that it's necessary. And again, you're just speaking scientifically, factually, if you will. I still like to highlight, just because there's so much alarm around the vaccine and then there comes this alarm about behind the boost. So there, in my opinion, there are those who might hear you that say, well, hey, if this guy who's a scientist says the boosters are not needed, then the question may become, in a sense, why is it being pushed? And I always like to remind people that, at least here in America, you know, the 16 shots that are on the CDC schedule, the reason you end up having 72 shots is because boosters are normal in our society. So I always like to remind people that are now using boosters as a fear-mongering thing, that boosters are quite common to be fully vaccinated. And so, like you said, the science specifically, based on everything you just said, is why it's not necessary. And then you also equated it to your personal, you know, decision to say, hey, jump into a third one when there's people that haven't gotten the first one. So I don't want it to be lost on you as a scientist saying it's not necessary, because some people will assume, oh, that scientist says it's not necessary, so why are they pushing it? So I want to kind of be clearer with that idea of what the booster does. And for, you know, and I'm only a layman reading about it, but in reading about it, definitely more so maybe for the 65 and up, because they're the ones that are mostly losing their lives. So just your thoughts on that, and then I want to come back with a immune response question as well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, that you're exactly right. It's not necessary yet. It might change in the future, but you know why they're pushing it. You know, it's. I think that it's a combination of some scientists trying to be overly cautious and governments wanting to save face, you know, because a lot of countries right now that are highly vaccinated, you know, and by highly vaccinated, I mean like 60%, between 60 and 80% vaccinated, you know, they are seeing some increases in cases. What's important, though, is that they're not seeing increases in deaths that are correlated with those cases.
Right.
In other words, the cases are rising really high, and we'd expect the deaths to rise really high, but the deaths are kind of flatlining.
Which is a good thing.
But yeah, it's a great thing. It's what vaccines are meant to do. But with the cases rising, governments are like, oh shit, you know, we got cases rising. What do we do? Booster. Let's get a third shot. Like, you know, that's kind of their reaction. And scientists are like, well, yeah, a third dose would help. So sure. And then that becomes the policy. So I think that's, if that makes sense, that's kind of the picture that I see going on. Yeah.
But even you laying it out like that, still, you're just saying, hey, here's where the government is getting involved. And it's still not necessarily something super nefarious, but you're just speaking honest to how politics kind of distorts the science, not in the way that people that are afraid or people that are pushing misinformation will say. You're just saying, hey, here's the discussion. But let's talk about that immune response real quick, and I'll get out of everybody's way. So just like you said, Chief X, it's the immune system working when you have those feelings. Let me say my situation too. I'm actually in a Novavax trial, so I'm not allowed to take the Pfizer or Moderna, because I was in the Novavax trial prior to Pfizer and Moderna becoming emergency approved, just to highlight that. But anyway, with that said, I always like to be clear, because this is something that most people have failed to understand when we talk about an immune response. So there's this big conversation out there constantly about why are they pushing this as the only thing? And it's because, in a sense, our high school science is not as great as helping us recall or remember that people conflate preventative and remedy. They conflate vaccine and antiviral. So a lot of times people are always constantly talking about there are other options, there's other things, never realizing that these other things, whether it be herbal remedies, whether it be an actual antiviral drug, it's not that it's anybody's fault. It's just we just don't kind of common sense understand that none of these things create an immune response. So I would like for you to highlight that distinction, because people quite often will say it's not the only thing, and then the response they give is something that will be a remedy after you've caught it. There's nothing else that helps you prior to catching it, like a vaccine does from a preventative. If you could just clarify that, because people usually don't know that distinction.
Yeah, I mean, well, the simplest way I could say it is, the old saying of prevention is the best medicine. If you never get sick, that's the best thing, right? Like with anything else, with cancer, no one wants to hear that diagnosis that you have cancer. You'd rather prevent it your whole life if you can. So same with this, you don't want to catch it. You don't want to actually get infected. You want to prevent it from the start. And that's really what the vaccine does. The vaccine is the only medication that we have that is, at least it's the best medication that we have that is proactive in preventing the infection in the first place. And then if you do get infected, it's really good at just clearing it out before you get sick. So the big difference there is just, you just don't want to get sick in the first place. And that's what training the immune system does through a vaccine. And if you want to talk about some people might say oh, I've seen people say this on Twitter a lot. They'll say, I want to beat big pharma by not getting the vaccine and treating it myself. And then they go get COVID and end up getting a monoclonal antibody treatment that costs thousands of dollars. That's all money to big pharma. You leave with a hospital bill. That's all money that the hospital has to, spend to restore their supplies they used on you, and they're buying them from big pharma. Meanwhile, you're getting at most $20 worth of vaccine per shot in your arm, and you stay out of the hospital. So yeah, it's once you get sick and you're treating it, that's not ideal. You want to prevent it. Hope that answers.
Yep. Yeah, it does. If I thought one other thought, and then I definitely turn over to Chief X. So one other thought I always like to clarify is, again, just because people have used a lot of misinformation and made it, our community, specifically the African American community, in my opinion, even more alarmed. And so when I, just again, as a layman, a science enthusiast, just kind of look at, in a sense, even the history of the CDC and for, things that they've gotten right or gotten wrong, the thing that people miss about what we're experiencing right now is that the way this virus is being handled is how the CDC has been handling viruses for the last 70 years. So when a virus is put out, the goal is going to be to try to create a vaccine and an antiviral. And most people don't know those distinctions, but those are separate things. They try to do that with every virus. And when we've had the previous outbreaks, what has happened, luckily, they've been contained and they never got this far. This one was unable to be contained, but this response is no different than what the CDC has done for all viruses. The reason I highlight that is because if I wanted to get into the conspiracy mindset and think about it, I actually would be more alarmed had the CDC did something other than what they've always done for every virus. I also would like to highlight, because people are misusing this information too, they tried the same thing for the AIDS, right? Fauci and them tried the same thing for the AIDS virus. To a degree, failed at the vaccine because it's really too complicated of a virus to even do what we're doing with this one, if you will, right? But people even take that Fauci failing, and I'm not a Fauci fan or anything like that, but people sometimes take that Fauci failing example and are now turning it into this conspiracy thing, because the most people that are hearing these conspiracies are not even familiar with this is the normal process, which is more favorable than had the CDC change the game up. But if you didn't know that, people are taking what they normally do and now turning it into something nefarious.
That's a good point. Yeah. This is what we do against viruses. We make vaccines, we make antivirals, because vaccines are not 100% effective. Nothing is 100% effective. It's weird it would be weird to think that something could prevent all deaths. That would be a miracle medicine, and miracles, few and far between. So it's good to have vaccines to prevent most illnesses and antivirals to help treat the people who do get sick.
I have this question, and then we'll go to Unbiased Sports if he has a question.
Yeah.
I got the vaccine just because I'm a science guy. I mean, I like scientific things, and I listen to the experts with credentials, because I may not understand. But um, when I went and got it, that just made me immediately go get it. There was a UFC fighter who caught COVID, and his fight was canceled, right? And then he talked about he may have to retire because he had some kind of permanent lung damage from having COVID.
Mm.
And I said, just on the strength of that, me being 51 years old, and if I catch COVID, even if I recover from it, I may have some kind of maybe permanent kidney damage is a possibility, permanent lung damage is a possibility. I didn't want to go through that. And I said, I'm going to get this shot immediately. You know, my son caught COVID and he recovered. But I said, I'm 50. I may end up having some permanent damage. Let me go get this vaccine. I just wanted to say that. So you can speak to that. But this is my question also. What do you tell to people who say that they don't want to be a lab rat and they don't want to be first experimented on? And my answer to that question is, and I don't know if I have the wrong answer, if I was responding wrongly, but I told people that they had volunteer trials before the vaccine was rolled out. And so maybe 100,000 people, I'm not sure the exact number, volunteered and was tested on, and then it was found to be what's the proper word? Effective.
Yep.
So then they rolled it out. So if someone comes to you and say, I don't want to be an experiment lab rat, how do you answer that? Because the experiment took place before it was rolled out to the public. What do you say, Doc?
Yeah, I mean, they tested the lab rats already. So any drug, any vaccine that before it gets rolled out to the market, it's got to go through a process. And this vaccine was no different. People are weirded out that it made it to market so fast, but really the issue came down to money and priority. Those are the two things that made it happen fast. It's not the fact that the science takes so long to do.
Right.
But let me just go through the process. It's like first it has to go through preclinical trials, which is the lab rat part. They test it on animals. They test it on cells in a dish. Go through all that. If it looks good there, it moves on to phase 1 trials, which is with humans. If it makes it past there, it moves on to phase 2 trials, which is again with humans, just a little bit more. And then phase 3 is the big one, where for the case of these vaccines, each one for phase 3 was tested on 40,000 people. So they had 20,000 people getting the vaccine and about 20,000 people getting a placebo. And that's how they studied the safety and efficacy of these vaccines in those trials. Normally, progressing from preclinical to phase 1, 2, 3, super expensive. Like scientists will normally have to do the preclinical studies, submit that data to the FDA, and then kind of wait to hear back. And then they have to get funding to do the next study. So they either have to, if they're a company, they have to wait for it to get approved. If you're working with a university, you got to write grants. All that takes time. And you got to do that between each phase. So that adds up to years of doing these studies, then waiting, getting money, doing the studies, then waiting, getting money. But because this was an emergency, and because so many people were, making it a priority, the vaccine projects essentially had all the money they could want.
Blank check.
Yep. And as soon as they submitted to the FDA, they started review. They weren't put in line. They moved right to the front. So all of that helped speed up the process. So I tell people, like, that's an example of what science can do if we really care about science. If our leaders prioritize biomedical science, put more and more money into it, and if we were able to just put more resources into the review process, speed that up, we could have breakthrough drugs much, much faster. But yeah, they tested it on so many people. And let's see, since they were rolled out, I think now the number is over 6 billion doses of vaccine given worldwide. So the tests are done. You're not like, of course, there are still things we don't know for sure, but mostly that has to do with how long the vaccines will stay effective. When it comes to safety, it's pretty much we've learned most of what we're going to learn at this point when it comes to safety. So you're not a lab rat.
I'm not a lab rat.
No, you're not a lab rat at this point. Lab rats are tested; they're fine too.
You know, like are they gonna? And then we're gonna go to unbiased. Now, what about this COVID pill? Are people taking that? Is that like a thing or?
Yeah, what is it? Molnupiravir, I think is what it's called.
The antiviral, basically.
Yeah, it's an antiviral.
Natural process. Vaccine, antiviral.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's just it's an antiviral.
It's not in place of the vaccine, right?
No,
Okay.
It's not. It's to treat people who are outpatients. So before you get in the hospital, if you get diagnosed, you're at risk, you take the pill so that you don't end up in the hospital. But yeah, it's just an antiviral. I forget exactly how it works. But yeah, it's part of the normal process of just trying to have more options than just a vaccine, because why not have multiple solutions to a problem? That's how you solve a problem. You come at it from multiple angles.
Unbiased, and then Montoya, go ahead.
Yeah, so when you attempt to be an advocate for vaccinations, you will hear some feedback about the side effects. So I think what needs to be done is more of a compare and contrast, which you're comparing the side effects for COVID-19 to the vaccine. I think when that's done, I think people get a better visual and they'll make a decision. Just want to know something.
So we actually have a lot of data right now that can compare those two situations. So usually with any vaccine, the side effects that it might cause are going to be things that you will see with the disease, and a lot more often and worse with the disease than with the vaccine. So for example, with vaccines, probably one of the bigger headlines during this whole vaccine rollout process were the blood clot issues that were caused by the Johnson & Johnson and the AstraZeneca vaccines. Importantly, they were not associated with the mRNA vaccines. And
so is that a real thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was an incredibly rare instances where people suffered unexpected blood clots due to these vaccines. And I don't remember what the final numbers were, but
I can give you a couple numbers in the beginning. I don't know if they've changed since. But remember when J&J shut down for a little minute? So at the time, that was for 6 blood clots versus 4.6 million vaccines at the time. Right. And J&J was the one-shot vaccines. So that's a fully vaccinated. So 6 out of 4.6. I did a video on it and just highlighted that due to the concerns, it's the only reason they're even shutting it down for 6 out of 4.6. Because if it wasn't highlighted, 6 out of 4.6 million wouldn't have been a shutdown. But because the misinformation is alarming people, the CDC and the FDA got together and says, let's take a break and see if it's causal or not. That's what I remember at the time. What the numbers are now, I may not know, but at the moment, it was only 6 out of 4.6 million.
Montoya, my man, you're absolutely right. Like, yeah, that's exactly what happened and why they did it. They said, let's take a break.
Women, I believe.
It was
wasn't
all
the same.
at the time.
Yeah. And those numbers have changed, but it remains an exceptionally rare thing. Meanwhile, I did the math once, and it comes out to your something like about over 600,000 more times more likely to suffer severe blood clots with a COVID infection than you are with a COVID vaccine.
There's at least been 200,000 plus cases in the country in the last year and a half, blood clots caused by COVID. So Johnson gets shut down for 6 cases,
Right.
but we're at 200 plus cases. So great job, Unbiased. It's people, because the misinformation people like to give you one side of it. When you compare it, great point, Unbiased. I'm sorry, I just wanted to jump in and give you some numbers. Go ahead and finish, Dr. Wilson.
I got a better chance of getting struck by lightning.
Yeah. It's and it's the same thing with all the side effects really of COVID. You know, break it down by like heart inflammation. That's something people are worried about with the vaccines. You're more likely to get that if you get COVID. Stroke or an overactive immune response. You know, all those things are more likely to happen with COVID than with the vaccine.
Over 1 million strokes, Dr. Wilson. Over 1 million strokes have been caused by COVID.
Yeah, it's really, the disease is not good. Like for all the people that have thankfully recovered from it uneventfully, you just can't ignore the millions of people who have died and have suffered long-lasting, debilitating health defects from it. Like that can't be ignored. And
because I think it's because when people think, oh, people recover, it's a small amount of people. I think that's very selfish and uncaring for people to think like that. Like if it's like somebody made an example if it was a football stadium filled with 100,000 people, and 1% of them died. That's 1,000 people, like the whole band, the whole drill team, and everybody didn't die. That's crucial. That's
kind of serious.
That's a traumatic event.
And add this too, Chief X, because of what Dr. Wilson was just talking about. Because great point by Unbiased. When you start getting into the other symptoms, well, the long haul, I know a year ago, they may have changed now. I haven't looked at them in a year, Dr. Wilson. But the long haul was falling in at about 19%. So you really have 80% that are recovering, no problem, back to normal. People always overlook that 19% that they're still studying and still suffering, like you gave the example of the long-term people. Chief X gave the example of the COVID guy that may have to retire because his lung capacity doesn't come all the way back. It took, when I caught COVID, it took me about 5 months to get my lung capacity all the way back. But so everybody goes to 1%, only 1%, 99% recover. But there's about 19% of people that right now are still suffering long-term effects. My coworker, her mother has lost like 30, 40 pounds because her taste has never returned. Never returned.
Yeah, that's something.
Last year.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's something that a lot of people are experiencing, and that it's worrying to a lot of scientists that people are losing their taste and their smell, because that means that the virus is affecting your brain in some way, because those olfactory receptors, those are neurons. So it's not quite well understood what COVID is actually doing to the brain. And that's concerning. So we don't want to get it, which is why we vaccinate. But it's also like, why we don't do this with any other disease where it's like, oh, well, it only affects 1%. I had it and I was fine. Like no one goes to no one has breast cancer and it was nothing. Like I recovered from it. My family recovered from it. We're fine. Like you would just look like an asshole if you did that. Like it's insensitive, but we don't do that with cancer because it's well known that that's just not appropriate. It's not good behavior. But with COVID, people do it. And It's I think it's because it's something that affects so many aspects of our life so fast, and there's just been so much misinformation and emotional responses to the entire pandemic that responses like that are okay for a lot of people. So, but it's just weird.
How do you answer the question when people worry and use this as an excuse? They say, you can still catch COVID if you're vaccinated. I understand that. So you can catch it, but your body will eventually kill it without taking on further damage or getting further sick and being hospitalized and things like that. So when people bring up you can still have vaccinated and still catch it, and they talk about breakthrough infections, what do you say, Doc?
I think that the best analogy that I've heard, and this is supported by the science, we see this happening in vaccinated people. It's imagine if you got a house and you got a house fire. Are you gonna want to have a fire extinguisher there, or not? Having a vaccine and getting vaccinated is like having a fire extinguisher in your house. It's not gonna stop the fire from happening in the first place, but it's gonna help you a hell of a lot to put it out and avoid losing your house. So if that does that make sense? Like, you're not going to stop the event from happening, but you're going to walk away from it, hopefully unharmed.
Unbiased, you have a question?
Yeah. So you guys mentioned that there were some people who suffer from COVID-19 and they're having like severe side effects. So this is a two-part question, pretty simple. Is it advised that they get vaccinated afterwards? And also for the people who were vaccinated at a younger age and they suffer from Guillain-Barré syndrome, is it recommended that they also get the COVID-19 vaccine?
So yeah, if you've had COVID before, you should still get vaccinated. Two main reasons for that is, number one, immunity based on a natural infection can be pretty heterogeneous, meaning it could be really good or not so much, depending on several factors, including how much the virus replicated in you. Did you get treatment that stopped the viral growth before your body mounted a massive immune response? Did the virus hamper your immune response in any way? Things like that can all affect how your immune response, the quality of your immune response following a COVID infection. But even if you get infected and you have great immunity, it's shown that if you get vaccinated, your immunity is boosted an insane amount, actually. It surprised me to see the data where people who are recovered from COVID and get vaccinated, they end up with antibodies that can neutralize SARS-1, the virus that first emerged back in 2002, 2003. That's pretty amazing. That's really, like, why would I hear that and I'm like, why would you not want that? I want that. I want that immunity. But it's only been seen so far in people who were first infected and then vaccinated. So in theory, you're going to have much better protection, not only against COVID, but against any future variant of COVID, if you have that immunity. And you can imagine the benefits that might have, because COVID is going to be with us for a while.
Chief S, can I highlight something before he answers that second question?
You're next anyway.
Cool. So I want to highlight what you're talking about, Chief. I mean, Doctor. I'm sorry, mix y'all names up. Dr. Wilson. I'm sorry. I was about to say Chief Wilson. Dr. Wilson. So I want to highlight what you just talked about, because having looked at the Israel study, and I want to highlight that, Chief S, I think you'll appreciate this as well, because of how people misuse information. So the Israel study was the first place I saw what you're talking about, Dr. Wilson. You've seen that, and you probably seen more than I've seen. But to me as a layman, being able to read a study, it was like what you said was pretty accurate out of that study out of Israel, right? So and they highlighted that the people that had the best were the people that had it before and got the vaccination. But at the time when that study first came out, for those who wanted to promote misinformation, this is what they always do. They take a piece of the information. So they took the part out of the study that highlighted that those who had who had caught it naturally were shown to be stronger than those who were only vaccinated, which was true. But for the people that was pushing misinformation, they only pulled out that part. They left out what you just said. And so that's what I always tell people when you're getting your information from someone. It should be someone who clearly shows you all of the science and doesn't cherry pick the science. Once somebody starts cherry picking science, you know they have an agenda. And so they left out what you just said. Those who had it and had at least one shot were showing way more antibodies than everybody else, no matter their circumstance. And so that same study was encouraged to keep pushing the vaccines. But those who were cherry picking and pushing misinformation pulled out the part that said the people that had it have stronger immune than those who've only been vaccinated, which was true, but that's not all the information. So I just wanted to highlight why that was so significant, the part that you just pointed out.
So the second question was for the people who were vaccinated before and they had Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Oh yeah. So as far as I know, you mean like if they got different vaccines in the past and had okay. As far as I know, there hasn't been any association between these vaccines and Guillain-Barré syndrome. Yeah, as far as I know, there's no association. So it's currently not seen as a risk if you've suffered that in the past from different vaccines. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that, but as far as I know, there's no association.
So, go ahead. Go ahead. No, please finish, brother. Go ahead.
And one more thing. So I know that from your videos you tackle this, but this is something that goes on in, I think, all communities. And where they believe that, so back to side effects, like they believe that the vaccine side effects can be seen years time from now, 2 years, 5 years. You know, they say, we don't know, it's a new technology, something could go wrong 6 years from now. What do you guys say to that?
Yeah, that's a big thing I see.
Like before you answer that, because people like, you know, because what he was saying, like people are, well, wait till a year. I'm under the understanding you would see a negative reaction within a day or two. Go ahead.
So it's actually within about 8 weeks is like within 8 weeks after a dose is when we expect to see pretty much almost all negative effects in response to a vaccine. And the reason for that is because the negative side effects are going to be caused by your body reacting to the vaccine, right? That's what ends up causing the mild side effects. It's also what ends up causing the potentially more severe side effects that are more rare. But that like active immune response of your body reacting to the vaccine, that doesn't last years. It lasts weeks, months. So within that time period is when we would expect to see an adverse reaction. And the first people got their mRNA shots over a year ago, and we haven't seen the emergence of new negative effects in them. And just there's no reason like scientifically to imagine a scenario on a molecular level of how these vaccines are going to somehow 2-3 years down the line cause a new disease in you. That just doesn't make any sense. The contents of the vaccine are all gone within weeks. So,
and it just goes back to what we said in the beginning. The reason people are so concerned about that is because, on average, we're conflating of what a vaccine does and what an antiviral does. So because people in their mind see vaccines, medicines as the same thing, they're concerned about these long-term effects because they're thinking vaccines do what antivirals do. Vaccines just assist the body with what it already does. An antiviral is actually coming in to remedy some issue, and both will have side effects. But is it fair, Doc, when I say this, because I say this all the time on my page, is it fair when I say when you compare vaccine medicines against antiviral medicines, vaccines adverse effects profiles are much lower than regular antivirals, to include something like aspirin, for example. The profiles are much less in comparison to, because all medicines carry an adverse profile, but vaccines typically, especially the ones we get when we're babies, they have to be safe enough for babies. So their profiles are much lower than what I'll even make this comparison to even baby Tylenol, for example. The vaccine's profile is less than the baby Tylenol profile when it comes to adverse effects. But it's because people conflate the two. It's like once you get that distinction, I think it plays a huge role in you understanding why you just said there's no molecular way that a vaccine could do this. People are not buying it, even coming from you as a scientist, when you're saying it's out of your body completely, because in their mind, they're still thinking it's like an antiviral, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's I tried my best to understand the reasons why people come at it from different angles, and I bet that's one of them.
Yeah, they're thinking of the same thing. That's why even you saying it as a scientist, but if you and I are able to make the distinction that they're not the exact same type of medicine. All a vaccine does is assist the body in what it already does. Now, people that are fighting against that will say, well, if the body already does it, why do we need it? We can go there, but I'm just saying, once you understand that a vaccine is not as evasive as an antiviral is, even the safest ones, vaccines are typically much safer. Like, of course, again, nothing is 100% safe. There will be bad adverse effects even from vaccines. But if you compare that to just aspirin, in which we lose about 6,000 lives a year to aspirins in the country.
Or peanuts.
Peanuts are about 150. Yeah, 150. Because I love that one, Chief X. Anything you put in your body has a potential for adverse effects, even our foods. And on peanuts, for example, about 150 to 250 people may lose their lives due to their adverse effects to peanuts. We don't lose 150 people to none of those 16 vaccines that we already approved on the CDC. We don't lose 150 people. Babies are adults.
You want to address this question on the screen, Dr. Wilson?
Sure. Promote the efficacy of vaccines that utilize polysorbate 80 to penetrate the blood-brain barrier. I mean, polysorbate 80, it's a weak non-ionic detergent. It's used as a surfactant in vaccines. It's used as a surfactant in lots of injections. It's not going to penetrate the blood-brain barrier. Most of the vaccine contents don't even end up in the bloodstream. That's why we inject it into muscle. It's not people don't try to find your vein to inject a vaccine. They just go right into the muscle. So, yeah, I don't know where you heard that, but that's not really gonna do what you think it does.
Chief X, I saw a couple of other good questions in the chat too.
This one right here, I'm not familiar with Vioxx. Do you want to address this, Doc?
I'm not sure what Vioxx is.
You know what that is?
Is this the? I think that was that's an NSAID, like aspirin, sort of. A non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. Yeah, I don't know the full story on it, but
I've never.
Yeah, I mean there have totally been drugs in the past that were approved by the FDA and then later recalled. That happens. Does it mean that we shouldn't trust any drug? No. You should take it case by case. Look at the evidence. And the evidence for these vaccines is that they are very safe and very effective. I mean, we have data on over, what did I say earlier? Over 6 billion doses given. That's about 3 billion people worldwide. That's a lot of people. And scientists are actively studying this. They're actively looking at what's happening in these people who are getting vaccinated. They're monitoring their patients. There are labs doing their own independent studies, countries, multiple different countries doing their own studies. And they're all coming to the same conclusion that they're safe, they're effective. So it's with every passing day, it's getting harder and harder. It should be getting harder and harder for you to hold that position that they're not safe and effective. If you're being honest and looking at the data, you have to.
Yeah, because
you have to stop believing that at some point.
I'm past the 8-week period. Look at me.
Yeah.
Hey, Chief X, I think the audience should know Dr. Wilson's YouTube channel, because a lot of the questions that's being asked, he answered them already in his videos. But
I do talk about a lot of this stuff every week. Well, almost every week. Sometimes my daughter is a lot of work and I take a week off. But
yeah, Dr. Wilson's channel is called Debunk the Funk with Dr. Wilson. Debunk the Funk with Dr. Wilson. I caught on. Huh?
Maybe a mod so I can post a link to the YouTube channel.
Do it now?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just so people know, I don't have a Patreon. I don't do sponsorship deals. I don't do any of that. My channel is my passion project. I just like doing it. It helps give me a little more meaning in life. It helps me feel like I'm doing something a little more with my degree. And the only money I make on it is the ad revenue from YouTube. And any of us who has a YouTube channel knows that ain't much.
You want to address this statement right here?
Sure, yeah. Got a question. Is there a cutoff switch to its operation of producing spike proteins? Yeah. Okay. So essentially, what the mRNA vaccine does is it delivers the code for the spike protein into your cells, and your cells read that code and they make spike protein. But it's not forever. mRNA is a molecule that our own cells will make constantly. It's a process called gene expression. And it's essentially when a certain set of machinery reads the DNA, makes mRNA, and that mRNA gets read by a different set of machinery to make protein. And proteins are the things that are doing the actual work in the cells to keep us alive. But your cells have to really tightly control that process, right? It can't have every single gene on at every time and at whatever levels, right? It really, really controls these processes. So part of that means that it has to turn over mRNA. It has to recycle it, degrade it. And there are lots of different mechanisms in your cells to do that. So essentially each mRNA has a half-life in a cell. And it varies, but within a week, the mRNA from the vaccine is almost completely gone. It doesn't stick around.
Montoya, you can ask your question, but I want him. You're next, Montoya, but I want him to address this statement real quick.
Yeah, no problem.
Is that something crazy or what?
This question,
the statement, of course. I guess you're quoting someone named Michael Yadon.
Oh yeah, I've covered him. I covered him recently on my channel. That was a fun video. I'm absolutely terrified that vaccine passports and top-up vaccines are going to lead to mass depopulation and deliberate execution. What? Why execution?
Billions of people.
I'm confused. I mean, so
I tell people, like NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, and all, they don't want y'all dead, or they can't make no money.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, so I get it, right? I get that the concern is that they're out for control. Like they want to control us all. I get that that's a big driving factor in a lot of these worries right now. But I mean, from my perspective, this is just public health, you know? You get your vaccine and life is more normal than it was a year ago if you have a vaccine right now. If they really wanted to enact all these control and depopulation things, I don't think they'd be very shy about it. You know, they could exert all these vaccine laws through existing vaccines if they wanted to. Mass depopulation, if they want mass depopulation, then they wouldn't vaccinate us. They just let us die of COVID.
Exactly.
They would say, "Oh, we tested the vaccines; they don't work. We don't know how to beat this virus," and it would just keep spreading.
The easier play, Dr. Wilson, is, now that we're all, got information and we're all become all overnight scientists, unlike yourself, who had to go to school all those years to be the scientist that you are, myself included. I'm just a layman that studies information. But the easier play is, since we all now have the idea that vaccines in the past typically took 8 to 10 years. So if there was a group really wanting to make that play, they would literally just delay and say, we haven't got it yet. We haven't got it yet. Because here's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but again, this is just my information that I've researched. So for example, the United States just had a full year life expectancy drop. The last time we had a full year or more was 1922, the last year of the Spanish flu. For Hispanic males, that number is 3.7. For African American males, it's 3.5. So if there was this idea, especially just to bring the race into it, if there was this idea of depopulation, the virus is doing it just fine. So I always tell people, while there are evil people in the world, people make the mistake of making them more capable than they actually are. Because what for the depopulation to even be somehow factual with this vaccine would mean, despite those real life expectancies drop, they're actually going to trick us with their vaccines to kill us faster when we've had nothing kill us this fast in 100 years. It makes the depopulation one is the one that makes no sense. I'll give some credence to control in these ways and that ways, but the depopulation one is the dumbest of them all. I hate to use that word because I like to respect people's perspective, but 3.5 it's already killing us. It's already killing us.
It is, and it's affecting minorities more because minority communities are more commonly the ones that are impoverished, not have access to good health care. So when a rich white community gets sick, they can go to the hospital, get treated. They have a better chance of surviving. Poor black community in the ghetto, they're going to be at home stuck. They don't go to the hospital. They don't have health insurance. It's sad, and it's sad that that's not more recognized.
First year we lost 60,000 blacks. I'm talking specifically African Americans in the first year of this thing. 60,000 blacks. Chief X, you from LA. You remember when the country used to lose their minds in the early 90s due to all the murder rates being high. That was 10,000 blacks losing their lives during the highest heights of the murder rate. 10,000 blacks will lose their lives. So we're losing 60,000. And like y'all talked about in the beginning, there's no empathy for those deaths.
Right.
Yeah. And we was losing our minds in the early 90s because 10,000 black people would die via guns.
Yeah, it's sad. It's real sad. And then just on that other question, the one that was a quote from Mike Edon. Yeah, like I said, I have a video about him debunking a lot of what he says, but he's not the former vice president of Pfizer. He was the vice president of the allergy department of Pfizer. So, that's an actual accomplishment. I don't want to take that away from him, but you gotta you got to get it right with these credentials. You can't be saying that these people were all that when they weren't what you said they were.
What about this? What about this statement from her, the same person? I think Gloria Miller is an anti-vaxxer.
You think?
Gloria, I'll be happy to talk to you on my channel if you want. Let's see. Greatest fear is the creation of vaccines.
Pull up Gloria on this channel.
Okay, so this is getting at I feel like I've heard it all with these COVID concerns. So this is getting at this idea that former attempts at coronavirus vaccines, that's the COV she has there, that means coronavirus. Former attempts at coronavirus vaccines resulted in this phenomenon called antibody-dependent enhancement, which essentially what happens is the vaccine makes you make antibodies, but those antibodies end up helping the virus make you sick. And that is true. That did happen in some coronavirus vaccines that were attempted over a decade ago now, long time ago.
I thought it was
what's that?
I thought it was the 60s or 70s. The first time it happened, I thought it was in the 60s or 70s. I thought.
Oh, I don't know.
First time
I don't know about that. That might be true.
Since. It may have happened since, but the first time it ever happened was some COVID thing that had killed like 250,000 babies or whatever.
Okay.
And they tried a trial similar to what we're talking about. They tried a trial on like 30 babies or whatever, and it was ineffective, and 2 babies died. So they immediately shut it down. Again, I know people that, like, because you're a scientist and I'm an advocate, they just assume we're always on the side of things. But that shutdown is the reality of what science does. If the information doesn't hold true, science shuts it down. And the same guy that was involved in that was actually involved in the Moderna one, and that's never left his mind of what happened way back then. And so he's taken all that knowledge since that time to ensure that these vaccines would not do the very thing we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what scientists learn from things that happen. So with the SARS-1 vaccines that ended up producing some antibody-dependent enhancement in animal models, those vaccines did not move on to human trials, and scientists were able to actually figure out what was going wrong with the vaccines. And there were other SARS-1 vaccines that didn't have that effect, that did produce good, safe, effective immunity in animals. Those vaccines also didn't make it very far into human trials because SARS-1 fizzled out. So no one really wanted to fund vaccines against it, even though scientists really wanted to study it. Yeah. Pharmaceutical companies were like, well, this virus fizzled out. It's not around anymore. Who's going to take the vaccine if we make it? So they didn't move forward with it. But now, having all that knowledge from before, we can start. That helped us start these vaccines and make them successful even faster, having all that knowledge.
Right. Exactly.
So we had all that going in, and then when we started testing them, there was no evidence of this antibody-dependent enhancement. And it's real easy to test for, because what you do is you vaccinate an animal model, and then you do what we call a challenge experiment. You challenge them with the virus. So this was done in monkeys. So they were vaccinated and then exposed to the virus. And not only was the immunity granted by the vaccine effective, but they didn't observe any antibody-dependent enhancement. And now, with over 6 billion doses given and variants circulating, we still don't see any evidence of antibody-dependent enhancement. So it's not a thing with these vaccines. Is it a genuine concern going into vaccine production? Sure. But it's not a thing for these vaccines. It hasn't been seen.
and want to highlight, like I just like to highlight things for people.
Yeah.
Let's reiterate that the times that it was seen, those vaccines have not been continued. I just want to reiterate that because that's the part that people will skip over. Oh, we found this issue. They're skipping over the facts of the data that we can, once it becomes public. That's the only reason I know this stuff is because I can look at it. So I know it's been shut down every time.
Yeah, I want to address this statement. This is one of my customers, Sonny Rob Robinson. He said there will be wolves in sheep clothing. Trust only what the Creator has given you. Okay, I want to say this: herbs, fruit, and vegetables and food is not going to stop a virus. Okay, you have people living what people in the conscious community called living in nature, right? Just living natural and living in nature. Take, for instance, the Adamese Island people on the continent of Asia, that black group of people, right? Living in nature, free, no modern medicine, just living, but you cannot find one person over there who's 45 years old. You can't find one person who's 45 years old because they're dying and dropping like flies. Infant mortality rate is high. Infant mortality rate was high in ancient times. People were dropping dead all over the world. People think like, the ancients were just living forever. No, without modern medicine and vaccines, people were dying. There were babies dying being born because they didn't have a vitamin K shot like they have today. Every baby born gets a vitamin K shot because your blood doesn't, what do you call it? You can bleed out without vitamin K, and you can't get it from your mama. You have to get it after birth from foods and things like that. So since it's a newborn and they don't want the newborn to bleed out, they give babies a vitamin K shot. This is modern medicine saves lives. People on Adam and Eve's Island are dying early because of lack of modern medicine. So no food, fruits and herbs and things like that is not going to keep you healthy. It's not going to stop a virus. I don't care the healthiest man on earth. If he gets hit with a virus, he's going to be affected. What do you think about when people say herbs? Just eat good and herbs and that'll stop a virus. What do you think about that, Doc?
I mean, eat healthy. Yeah, it's good. That's a good thing to do. Care about your health, care about what you put in your body. That's all important. But it's like Chief's saying, it's not going to protect you against everything. Just like how your body evolved to do what it does, a virus, a bacteria evolved to do what it does. And what it does is infect a host and take resources from it until you get sick. So, your body, no matter how much you do to protect it, unfortunately, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to protect you against everything. So don't be afraid to accept help from something like a vaccine. Don't be too proud to do more than just eat good. You can accept help from medicine. That's what it's there to do. There to help you out.
And let's big up the ancestors, Chief X, right here. Great opportunity to big up our ancestors from this standpoint. So when we're talking about modern science, the idea of inoculations and vaccines, Europeans learned that from an African enslaved by the name of Onesimus. That's how we even got smallpox even started. So because basically as Europeans came to the Americas, literally South America, the North Americas, a lot, obviously they came and took over, if you will, but they pretty much decimated 80% of the population strictly because of the lack of interaction. And there was no such thing as a vaccine for the Native American population. When you get into real history and studies, the Native American population was one of the healthiest in humankind when you get into studying different genetic groups. And they got exposed to a virus and it wiped out 80% of their populations. The part of the reason Africans could deal with whites was because our ancestors had already figured out the inoculation process and was not affected. And the whites, when they first found out about it, they didn't want to believe it because it came from, they got the information from a slave. So our ancestors, who were great herbalists, ate natural meals, figured out before Europeans that, hey, here's this process that's more effective than just eating well. So I think it's completely disrespectful for our community to be afraid of something that our ancestors gave to a degree, not all of Africa, because Africa's so huge, but there were different tribes within Africa who had already mastered the inoculation process. Now, if you go in history, there's, you could decide the Chinese had figured it out pretty early and our African ancestors had figured it out pretty early. So I don't know who was first, but they didn't, we know they didn't interact by the time those different groups had figured it out in those different areas of the world. So crazy that our ancestors understood, hey, here's a better process than allowing these viruses to affect us in large mass this way. Let's put a little bit of, and here's the thing, back me up on this, Dr. Wilson, if I'm correct. In all reality, the process really ain't much different than it was originally. All we do now is the stuff you talked about, like the things you were talking about, the different things that are in it now. People think of those as deadly things. They're really just better for delivery and storage. Because otherwise, if modern science didn't have those things, we would all have to travel to where somebody did it.
Yeah.
That's all these other things that are put in the vaccines that people think are dangerous. They're really just for delivery and storage. Not to hurt our body, and that kind of stuff like people assume. They look up the ingredients and overstate what an ingredient does because they're not looking at the amount that's actually in the vaccine, and it ends up being a harmless amount. But nobody wants to look at that because they're already looking to make it dangerous. Too much water kill you.
It's the same kind of thing where if you show people a list of all the chemicals that are in an apple or a banana, they'd be like, if you copy and paste that list and put it in a vaccine ingredients list, they'd be like, I'm never taking this shit. Get it out of here, Like, dude, it's a banana. You eat it. Like, it's fine. It's chemicals. It's important to know like what the chemicals actually do, why they're there, and there's a reason for all of them in a vaccine. So yeah.
Somebody got a question for you on the screen.
Which vaccine is best for someone who has COVID already, and how many doses? The data, well, there's new data on this. I don't have it off the top of my head, but the data I remember are if you get one dose of any mRNA vaccine post-COVID, that'll give you the really super immunity that I talked about earlier. So that's all that's needed, really. One dose of an mRNA vaccine after having COVID. But you'll probably be asked to get the 2-dose regimen, which is also fine. That's also real good.
Can we highlight that there's about 8 major different vaccines around the world?
Is there 8? Let's see.
I think it's about 8.
Pfizer, J&J, AstraZeneca, Sinovac, Sputnik. I counted 6.
Okay, 6. But the reason I'm highlighting that is because people always group them together without understanding that we literally have all 3 generations of vaccines floating out here. And I love to highlight, for people that are still just so afraid of mRNA. This is something I got from my friend, brother Archievex. Is just highlighting that 3rd generation vaccines is just basically an improvement. And I've also heard this, and tell me if I'm right, Dr. Wilson, but they're so excited about finally figuring out mRNA to this degree that they're now thinking they're going to be able to attack, for example, AIDS and a lot of other viruses due to this 3rd generation technology finally being successful with it. There's greater possibilities, just like Brother Uncle always say, the difference between finding a propeller plane to now having jets. That so people are afraid of it because it's new, but it really is just third improved generation vaccines. And if you're afraid of that one, you can still go get an adenovirus, which is, so you can still go get the old generations for those that are still afraid of the new generation vaccine. I like to put all that out there for people to put it in perspective, because people that are against it try to conflate everything together, and that's not fair to the science.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So this guy has a statement, and a lot of people make this statement, but most all modern medicines are derived from herbs. Okay. Now, my understanding is most medicine does come from plants, but it's not that simple. I think, help me out here, Doc, when I finish. So a lot of medicines are made from bacteria in plants or plants but you would have to know what plants and extraction and how do you address this question? Because people think because you take herbs, you can cure things, but they're not sure what herbs. They won't tell you what type of herb or
How many plants
what
do you eat?
specific herb. I mean, can you address this?
Yeah. I mean, so it goes back to like kind of what we were talking about earlier, where in the old days, people noticed something. They noticed that if you inoculate yourself with the scabs of someone who had smallpox, you're gonna be more immune to it than someone who didn't. People notice those things, and now we understand the reasoning and all that stuff. We can make vaccines. We don't have to go to a person, get their scab, and inoculate ourselves with it. It's similar here, where back in the old days, someone noticed something. You noticed if you chew on the bark of this tree, you get some effect, and it helps you with some illness. Now we understand that it's this certain chemical in the bark of that tree that gives that effect. And instead of having everyone chew on the bark or cutting down a bunch of trees to get enough bark to squeeze that chemical out of all that material, we can just know the chemical structure of what we found in that bark of the tree and make it in a lab, make it exactly the same as the way it is in nature, and then distribute it to people so that everyone can have it. And yeah, you're right. A lot of medicines might come from bacteria or yeast or things that grow out in nature or the plants. But yeah, I think the point that person was making is that most medicine is derived from nature. And that's true. Most of it is.
Is it necessary? Desk of Days, she has a question. Is it necessary? I think we answered this, but is it necessary for someone who has had COVID already to get the vaccine?
Yeah, we talked about this already, but essentially, I would say you should get vaccinated even if you've had COVID, because then you're sure that you have good immunity and you have better immunity than anyone else. Vaccinated or no, you have the best immunity if you have COVID and then get vaccinated. So yeah, why wouldn't you want that?
Unbiased, you got a question?
Well, I want to say when it was spoken of the indigenous people who passed away from smallpox in large numbers, I think they had guys' natural immunity, and it didn't do nothing for them. Also, after Onesimus, interaction with Cotton Mather, 90 years later, I believe 1790, Edward Jenner came up with the more, safer way to introduce vaccines. So, like, that's how that played out.
Montoya, you got a question?
Because I'm going to say they're putting the scab from a person who suffered from smallpox onto your scab. I think there was still a 20%, 30% chance of death from smallpox. So it was like a high death rate as still doing it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't super effective in the beginning. Had a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, I would just just even highlighting the question about the herbs and things of this nature. Again, big ups to our ancestors. I can't right now, it's slipping my mind. Dr. Wilson may know, but one of our ancestors was really one of the first ones to really understand how to isolate active ingredients within plants to now kind of birth us into medicines as we know it today. I forget right now, it's just slipping my mind. The brother that really kind of was one of the first to do that, and so that's what developed modern medicine specifically, or whatever. Because at this point, the world is transitioning out of, kind of as Dr. Wood said, you might eat the entire plant. They might put the whole plant in the soup that they might give you, and it would remedy your thing. And so people would think, oh, well, that's better than taking a pill. And then science finally figured out, oh, really the only thing that's helping you is the active ingredient in that plant. But before science figured that out, they would just have you eat the entire plant, or they would put the whole plant in some type of soup. And so people don't necessarily realize modern medicine is no different than, if a remedy has been proven to work for thousands of years, we're still using it, even if it comes to you in a pill. That's something that people miss. I learned that from you, Chief X, on some of your former videos, just kind of breaking down that aspect that I go, by nature, I will go research behind you and just verified a lot of what you used to say on some of your videos about just understanding modern medicine really isn't what people think it is. And I'll throw this out and shut up. Even during some of my research, again, you drove me to do some of this research, Chief X. And in my research, I found there's a future scare of shortages of medicines in the future. Now, the way we think about modern medicine today, you would think it's because of the synthetic stuff. But the research is showing they're more concerned about enough natural products to have enough medicines in the future, which points to what you had broke down in your video a couple years ago, Chief X. Again, you started me down that path researching that. And the reason I'm highlighting this specifically is because we have this assumption that all the medicine is just synthetic and made up. If that was the case, there could be no shortages because they could just simply make a bunch of synthetic stuff. But the remedies that are proven require the same natural remedies that was required before we had pills, if you will. So I like to just kind of really throw that stuff out. And I end up finding it out because of some of your stuff, Chief X, looking at some of your other stuff in the past.
Cool. Dr. Wilson. When I seen the term molecular biologist, I thought a molecular biologist was an MD, not a PhD. So people get it confused sometimes. What is it to be an MD? Would that mean you would be someone who prescribed something like a psychiatrist is an MD?
Yeah.
PhD.
So MDs are people who went to medical school. They saw patients, they studied medicine. PhDs are people who went to graduate school and did research. So like I went to graduate school. I did research for 5-ish years. I had a thesis. I defended my thesis and I earned my PhD. MDs, very different path. They treat patients, they do their rotations, their residency, they get board certified. So yeah, a very different path, researcher and MD.
Okay, so MD would be someone who prescribes or deal with patients.
Yeah, medical doctor.
Okay, I got you. How long was your PhD program?
I was in the program for 5.5 years.
So you did probably a total of almost basically 10 years of school, from beginning trying to get your bachelor's to getting your PhD.
Yeah.
See, and what I tell people is it's disrespectful. It's a lot of people out here who never took a science class. want to teach you something. You know what I mean? It's like you don't have a clue that you just disrespecting these people who went to school for damn near 10 years. They had the sleepless nights, being broke in college, studying, doing homework, dissertations, theses. I mean, just like years of study and research and putting in time and work for some idiot on social media.
Yeah, and
Science class.
and y'all will love this. I went when I was in graduate school getting a PhD. I knew someone who was doing their PhD in business, and his thesis question was, "Is it financially worth it to do a PhD?" And his answer was no, no, because when you're doing your PhD, a lot of people don't know this, but you don't pay to get your PhD. You get paid to do research. So while you're earning your PhD, you're getting a stipend, but that stipend, it's for most schools, and most programs, it's about like $28K a year. So just picture that you're in your 20s, mid 20s maybe, and you're getting your PhD. You're earning that much money every year. No raises, no bonuses, no hourly wage. That's what you earn. No 401k benefits, none of that. For 5-6 years. Meanwhile, someone else who went off and got a regular job is earning 2-3 times as much per year. They get benefits. They get the 401k. It's not financially worth it. We're not in it for the money. Going into research, it's just it's sad when I think about it. Like, man,
You suffered through that.
did I make the right choice? I don't know. I'm proud of my choice, but looking back on it, it's like, man, no one told me that. No one told me what I was getting into.
Like, I have an ex-girlfriend who has a PhD in vision science, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess initially she wanted to become an optometrist or ophthalmologist, whatever the proper word is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But she just did her educational requirements to get her PhD in vision science, and she didn't do that extra year internship under a optometrist where she can get signed off and whatever. So she got jobs doing research, and she never really got into the field of being an optometrist or ophthalmologist. You know what I mean? So, and she has debt.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? So I understand what you're saying.
And I like to add to the disrespect from this standpoint, because not only do you go through that full process, and I agree with you, Chief X is so disrespectful, because then you'll have, again, those who are pushing their own narratives for whatever reasons. They'll say that a brother like a Dr. Wilson and all these people that have, again, done all this research, they'll just say, well, they're allowed to dupe us for the money. Like that somebody can just pay y'all off to allow these vaccines and other things to harm your people because somebody just gives you a little bit of money. Like, you're going to disregard everything you learn, see something coming down, and none of y'all are going to come ring the bells and say, hey, this ain't what you say it is. Like, I'm just showing you how disrespectful it is. I've seen, for example, just to be concrete, I've seen Rizza Aslam get asked that question, and he just goes, hey, they don't know. They just don't know what they're doing. Like, you're this smart, and now you can be duped into looking at the science and thinking it's okay when it's really not okay. Like you're too smart to allow this to happen.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to Rizza Islam sometime, but I don't think he'll answer me.
If you guys haven't been to Debunk the Funk with Dr. Wilson, subscribe to his channel. He does have a video speaking on Rizza Islam and debunking him. He's part of what they call it, the disinformation dozen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's part of that little clique, and Dr. Wilson comes for him. But I doubt very seriously he'll want to have a conversation with you live in front of anyone.
Yeah, I'm open to it. One of my goals that I had in starting my channel, being someone who used to believe in all these conspiracy theories, the way I got out of it was, well, one, having really good teachers, and two, having people who were patient enough to talk to me about my ideas, listen to me, and then respond. Eventually, their responses got better and better the more people I talked to, and I had to start. If I was being honest with myself, I had to start thinking like, wait a minute. They made a point there. I couldn't address it. Why couldn't I address it? And I'd go like furiously try to research like, nah, there's got to be something I missed. Like that point got to be stupid. But it just gradually broke down. So I'm not looking to change anyone's mind in the moment. I'm just looking to like be someone to help them in their journey. So I want to talk to people. I want to talk them through these things. So for real, my contact info was like in the description of my videos. So you want to talk to me, we'll try to set something up. And that goes for you, Riza Islam. I know you're probably not watching, but whatever.
So I want to piggyback from Black Socrates because he made a great point. So I have experience in the manufacturing facilities of medicine. And when you get your paperwork and it says that inside the dryer, for example, that it needs to be to this degree, right, of heat. If it's below, you're not supposed to dry. The humidity. If it exceeds beyond what's inside the SOP, you can't do it. And the SOP says that it doesn't matter supervision, the owner of the company. Nobody can tell you to do something that's against your SOPs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're super strict about that in industry. Academia, each lab has their own rules, but in industry, it's annoyingly strict. Like I've had experiments. When I do my experiments in my job now, they have to meet certain criteria in order to pass the data. And I've had week-long experiments that I get to the end and it doesn't pass by like 0.1 of a value, and it's like such a narrow margin, and they're like, sorry, we have to repeat it. And I'm like, oh my God, you serious? Like, it doesn't matter though, but it does. So they're super strict, annoyingly so. It's really tough to commit fraud in industry. And if you do get caught committing fraud, they fire your ass. They fire you real quick.
Yeah, I talked to a sister who I'm sorry, go ahead, unbiased. I'm sorry.
Now, I was going to say you get fired, and some instances you do jail time, serious jail time. But go ahead, brother.
Oh yeah. They tell you when you get hired, you're like, if you get caught with fraud, you'll be immediately terminated and you could face charges.
Yeah, I remember last year I talked to a sister, and I'm probably not familiar with her exact role, but she was one of the people who would designate what the cause of death was, whatever that role is in her hospital or whatever. And I just talked to her about what her procedures were like. And once you hear the step-by-step guide, she was like, I make decent money, but do you think I would risk my entire job to designate this wrong? And if you hear her steps just for her, then now nobody ever thinks about this, but you literally would have to have people like her all throughout the country that you would have to get on your side to designate these deaths wrong. Like, who's doing that? Who's willing to do that? Because her name's on it. Even when it goes above her, her name is still on it. Because some people like to say, well, the person who controls the hospital can change it. It can't be changed because her name's on it too. And again, us getting into the procedure and the step-by-step procedures that are so strict that in getting I'm talking about for people that want to say the numbers are being reported incorrectly. Like people don't even have a concept of what that would even look like once you understand the strict procedures that people in these positions are in at risk of losing their jobs if they defrauded just because somebody told them to. It ain't that simple.
Dr. Wilson, we ain't gonna hold you forever. We're gonna hold you 10 more minutes, right? 10 minutes, and it's just a couple questions. I think I want you to touch real quick. People are so worried about the deaths from a COVID vaccination.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure. 10 people have died from the vaccine. Has there been proven deaths related to the vaccine? And what percentage or how many deaths are there? This is something people are just really concerned about. The death from a COVID vaccine. It was just you can just speak on that, and we're gonna let you go. Let me just say this. I asked Dr. Wilson how old he was. I thought he was maybe late. Dr. Wilson is 28 years old.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? This is a PhD, a 20-year-old PhD. You know what I mean? I'm a grown 50-year-old man. I'm being taught. You understand it? And it's okay. You know what I mean? I lean towards experts and professionals. But address the deaths from the vaccine. Have there been actual deaths? Or is the number so small? Or what do you say, Doc?
The numbers are real small. I mean, yes, there have been some confirmed deaths, mostly the blood clot thing that was identified with the J&J and AstraZeneca shots. There were a couple of deaths that happened in those cases. Other than that, it's been really hard to actually positively identify, like causally link a death with a vaccine. And that's despite the billions of doses that are being given. So the numbers are just really, really small. If there were lots of deaths, we would know about it because we knew about the really rare blood clots.
The mitochondria, we know about those.
What was that?
I'm saying another example was the heart populations.
Yeah, myocarditis.
We know those numbers. We know those numbers, but we don't know the death numbers. Like it don't make sense.
Yeah, and the myocarditis is almost always mild, resolves on its own, and in a lot of cases, it's not actually clear whether or not the vaccine caused it because myocarditis can be caused by lots of different things, and you have to ask the question, with millions of people getting vaccinated all at once, and people have people notice something in their body, and they're like, "Oh, what was that? I need to go get that checked out." When if it was a normal year, they would be like, "Oh, well, what was that? That was weird." That you do have to consider that. You have to consider the kind of situation we're in where everyone's getting vaccinated. It's under a microscope. People are thinking a lot about it, noticing things they might not normally notice. But anyway, what people usually cite are the VAERS numbers, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. People usually cite those numbers as in, like I've seen some people in the chat here do it, saying that 100,000 people, whatever, have been killed or hurt by the vaccine. Those are VAERS numbers. They are not verified at all. I mean, there are VAERS reports, literally, where people will submit a report saying, I took this vaccine and then experienced gay. I got turned gay by the vaccine. Like, the report literally says that. That's not real. That's just someone writing up someone trolling. There's a submission where someone said they turned into the Incredible Hulk from a vaccine. It's a passive reporting system. It's not verifying the reports that are given to it.
It is meant. Nobody turned into the Hulk?
No, sorry.
That's what the bear says, Chief Ed. The bear said
it. Right.
It's what VAERS is for. It's for people, anybody in the public, to report events. Now, this can be members of the general public. It can be doctors. Doctors are required to report adverse events to VAERS.
Right.
Or it could be lawyers looking to like make a submission that they can reference in their court case. That happens too. But anyway, what it's there for is for experts to look at the data, see trends, like they see, okay, there are lots of reports coming in for this. Let's kind of look at that. Let's see if we can follow up on that, verify these reports, see if there's a real trend here or if something else is going on. That's what it's for. So unless the data get followed up on, experts can confirm that the events actually happened and that they were caused by the vaccine, VAERS is not citable. You can't just bring up those numbers and state it as fact. Can't do it because anybody.
The website also gives you disclaimers saying the same thing, saying do not use these numbers to prove anything. Unverified, things like that.
And let's
Big
I'm sorry.
Yeah, last thing. And Big Pharma cares about you so much that in the pharmaceutical industry, that if I'm off work and somebody tells me that they suffered an adverse effect from something that we offer, I'm obligated to report that person. If I do not, I'll be fired. So
exactly.
That's how serious they are.
And let's highlight the deaths right here because that was his chief. Because this is we gotta get this right. So if you understand what Unbiased just said, this is his requirement. Any adverse effects. So what happens is, and this is what people miss too. If I take the vaccine and I die 2 weeks later or 2 months later, I can go on the VAERS report because I died after the vaccine. Again, that's sticking to what Unbiased just explained. Anything that happens after taking any medicine, this is a requirement for all medicines. The VAERS has just been made public because we're in the middle of a pandemic, so we all get to see it. But this process that Unbiased just broke down has always been happening for all medicines. As the public, we didn't care about it, didn't know about it. Unbiased cares about it because he is his livelihood. So he's been knowing that all medicines, you have to report all adverse effects. Simply report.
Mm-hmm.
Some people drink water and died the next day.
Yeah.
Somebody drank some water and died too.
Right.
But billion people drink water and died.
But the VAERS had, I think the last time I looked at it was at 14,000 deaths. And so, of course, there are people that are putting causal to that, but they're just required to report because they died after the vaccine. I just want to be very clear why that number looks high and why Dr. Wilson just said at the time it was one death related to the blood clot. And that, like I say, that was a year, 4 or 5 months ago. So there may be up to 2 deaths now. And then also, let's highlight this. We were talking about the heart populations. The VAERS report is why they ended up studying it, because what happened was because the vaccines had the largest human trials of any medicine ever. Am I right about that, Dr. Wilson, due to the situation? We've never had human trials this large. So while having trials this large, they have expectations, just because, like Dr. Wilson said, within 8 weeks, you should see certain things. So they have expectations of what they should see. So what happened with the mitochondria, I might be saying the word wrong, but what happened was the VAERS numbers were reporting higher than they expected in the trials. So the science world said, we better go take a look at this.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. And they checked it out. Scientists and doctors, they're serious about this. They're serious about this. You can complain about corruption and fraud in scientific community. It has happened in the past. Does that mean that all science is corrupt? No. Science in reality is a really, I describe it as like a bunch of hyper competitive nerds who are all trying to, make a name for themselves. And they make a name for themselves by doing good work and critiquing others' work, because if they make good critiques, they'll get more respect. So they are trying to find flaws in things. They're trying to,
I'm piggyback, but I don't mean to cut your wisdom.
No, go ahead.
Off of that, it's like, I don't know why people think scientists or certain professionals are out here intentionally trying to fuck up or harm or lie to people. It's like if you make it to the NBA, you're not going to intentionally miss your shots. If you miss your shots and don't do good, you're going to be benched. You're
Yeah.
not going to play. You're going to be out of the NBA. And it's the same thing in the scientific world. They're not trying to fuck up and ruin their legacy or harm somebody and get fired and lie. People aren't trying to do that, or you won't be nobody. Nobody's gonna call on you. Nobody's gonna have you on their shows. You're not gonna, nobody's gonna read your journals. Just nobody's gonna believe you at all. So people are actually trying to get it right. Now there are wicked people and evil people in the world who, but
Or you have bad scientists who don't do good work, get kicked out of the field, and now go make a name amongst conspiracy theory people because they can't make money in the field. So they become the rogue scientists because they wasn't good scientists. So now they're the ones that a lot of people are listening to because they did once at one point had a real credential and now they're using it. And then of course, for those who are believing it very easily, they're propping them up and says, oh, they kicked them out because they had the right scientists. Like we're in the scientists world, y'all world now is y'all share y'all information worldwide. This ain't the 1940s where you were just doing it within your country.
So we're gonna let you go. We've had you for 2 hours, Dr. Wilson. And we're gonna kind of hang out here for a minute and have an after party while you're gone. But I want you, Dr. Wilson, before you go, I want you to get back to your beautiful newborn, your little newborn 5-month-old. You know what I mean? He's a family man. He took time out. I appreciate you taking your time out to answer our questions and have a discussion with us. I really appreciate that. When I first emailed you, I said, I wonder if he gonna respond. So I emailed you, then I inboxed you over here, and then
yeah,
and he responded, and I was very appreciative of it. And so before you go, just let us know the importance of taking vaccines, the importance of not believing these quacks out here, and just give us some last words and some hope, or just do whatever you do, Dr. Wilson.
I would say, if you were to have someone that you love who got sick with COVID and you lost them, you lost someone you love to COVID, and you're thinking to yourself, how could this have been prevented? Well, that person who you lost, they got COVID from someone. If that person who passed COVID on to them was doing things to prevent the chances of them spreading COVID around, like getting vaccinated, wearing a mask, being careful, then maybe your loved one would still be there. And so if you would want that person to take those actions to protect your loved one, then why wouldn't you do the same thing to help out someone else? That's why I'm vaccinated. That's why I still wear a mask. I'm careful. I do what I can to protect not only myself, but my daughter who can't be vaccinated. So we all have people around us who are vulnerable that we love. Do your best to protect them. It's public health. It's not gonna hurt you, these things. So small things can make a difference.
One thing I forgot to ask you. What do you think about Dr. Sebi?
Dr. Sebi. Oh, I haven't read too much about him, to be honest. I heard a lot about him when he was alive. And he's passed away now. But the stuff I heard from him was kind of wacky. I remember him talking about eating certain colors of food, doing something. It was weird. It never made sense to me. But yeah, I haven't read too much about him lately.
Yeah, he claims an alkaline body will prevent you from cancer, and eat alkaline foods and drink alkaline water. But the thing is, you cannot change your pH balance.
Yeah,
like drinking or eating anything. Our pH balance is a very narrow window of around 7.4, and if it deviates from 7.4, you may be in a coma or on your way to die. You understand me? So
Mhm.
if you drink alkaline water and eat alkaline foods, and I drink Coke and eat a hamburger, we're still going to have the same blood pH balance.
Yeah. Ask any diabetic about blood pH levels. They'll tell you that any deviation is bad.
Yeah.
But I appreciate y'all having me. It's always an honor to get invited to talk anywhere. So I'm happy you reached out. I'm happy to be here. Happy to talk. So y'all take care and keep doing what you're doing.
I really
Thanks,
appreciate
Doc.
that.
We really appreciate you. You
I
got
really
some words
appreciate
for
it, bro.
people unbiased?
What'd you say?
I'm just appreciative of Dr. Wilson because as of late, there's been a lot of doctors and scientists with their own YouTube platforms giving good information, but not too many of them, or probably none of them, are accessible to laymen like ourselves. So the simple fact that you stepped up and joined us is big. Trust me, especially our little small community is very big.
That's important for me to hear. I appreciate that. I try to explain science to be in an accessible way. So
You got some parting words for him, Montoya?
Same thing, just super appreciative. Thank you for the extra time. I'm, Chief X knew I was going to run my mouth, but I hope the best thing is you confirmed that me just trying to give people the best information, that I haven't been giving people misinformation, and I would have changed it had you corrected anything. So I really appreciate what you're doing. I'm going to start sharing your stuff on my page. Thank you very much.
from what I heard here, it sounds like y'all get it. So keep doing what you're doing and appreciate
Yes,
it.
sir. Yes, sir.
I appreciate you, Dr. Wilson. You can see your way out.
All right, y'all. I'll see you.
Take care.
Have a good night.
Yep. Good
Peace.
night. Peace.
Dope.
Hey, the Three Stooges.
That was dope. That was dope, Chief X. Thank you, bro, for giving me an opportunity to come on.
Yeah, it's always good to have a
Definitely
professional.
historical moment, definitely.
And wait a minute. Now wait a minute. Why this ain't playing right? Hold on, y'all. Don't go nowhere. This is after. Montoya, listen to this after party music.
I can dig it. Oh yeah, gotta bring that West Coast funk back.
Wait a minute. Ain't this how we opened up?
Yep. The West Coast funk. That's how you always do it, Chief. Don't hurt him, Chief. Don't hurt him, Chief. Don't hurt him, Chief, man.
You don't know nothing about that, unbiased.
Don't.
They don't fuck around out there in the East Coast like that.
It is funky though.
Yeah, that was a good little live stream we did. Got a little basic information out there. What you think, Montoya?
Oh man, I loved it, man. I loved it. I think at the end of the day, the information just when you connect, and this is what people a lot of times confuse, like the word science is conflated today, right? Or whatever. And so people think, like myself and even you sometimes, Chief X, the way that they think we're using science from the standpoint of relying on people, and don't understand that we're typically just talking about science from a methodology standpoint. And that distinction has to be made because that's where you can get consistency. You're always going to have humans, sometimes with bad intentions, sometimes make mistakes and fuck up some science. And I highlight that because it's not like you or I are not unaware of it or whatever. But the thing that we love the most about science is science corrects itself. So even when science methodology shows something, even if it shows something for 10 years or 15 years, if methodology improves upon it or says this is no longer right, science immediately changes. And that's something that within our human minds we lose sight of because we're so caught up in our own human process for how we process information. Science is not tied to anything. And a lot of times when they hear people like me who are science advocate and that you are a science advocate, they think we're just believing in people, not understanding that we're just committed to the methodology.
Let them know your YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah.
People
Yeah. Mental Dialogue, youtube.com/mental dialogue. And so that's my YouTube page. But every Saturday morning, I do my blog talk show. So follow me on Facebook under Montoya Smith or on IG if you got IG, mental_dialogue. And my radio show plays. We got a show tomorrow morning, every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we focus on issues of race, sex, and culture. I just am a science enthusiast, so I love talking about this issue because I thought it was important for our community. But ultimately, we do conversations on race, sex, and culture. Tomorrow, we're doing, is it harder for men or women after divorce to date? So after a divorce, who is it harder for, men or women? So we do all types of issues with race, sex, and culture. And then like Chief X, I recently started a live YouTube show called Just My 3 Cents. And it's 30 minutes or whatever anybody wants to jump on and talk about. But again, race, sex, and culture is our focus. So thank you for letting me put that out there as well, Chief X.
Hey, Unbiased, like I'm gonna start having some. Montoya, when you said that, it just triggered me because I'm gonna start having some relationship live streams about relationships and things like that. I think I'm very good with that topic.
Yeah, I think you are too.
I didn't get in so many relationships. I've been married before. You know what I mean? I didn't have experience. I know women well.
You're good at them. I think you're good at them.
We can have some nice relationship discussions. Unbiased, what you think about the stream today, bro?
I think it's great. It blew my expectations, definitely. You know, I didn't know what to expect. Because again,
I seen you debating in the chat. I seen you debating in the chat.
Oh yeah. I gotta, calm the waters a little bit. But this is very, very informational. His videos really cover a lot of the talking points. Montoya definitely elaborated, so that was very important. And I think that was great. It was a great build. And I picked my shots when it was time to add something new.
Yeah. I think the thing what happened with sciences is they're, everybody's mind works a little different, right? They're so specific, so they're gonna just kind of give you just it. And I'm always kind of like Chief X too. I think you do this as well, Chief X. I'm always trying to think, how is the layman receiving it? Myself being a layman as well, so I'm not looking down on nobody, but I'm always trying to process. How do I make it make sense? Because that's what we call my show on Wednesday, Just My 3 Cents, make it make sense. How do I make it sense, to somebody who's by nature, even though he's giving them the correct information, their first thought is, I'm not going to believe it. And I'm trying to think of why are they not believing it so that we can get into that thought process. Because the scientist by nature, you heard him say that one time tonight. He goes, yeah, I'm always wondering why people are thinking that, because they can't jump to why they're being disbelieved. They just know I gave you the right information. Why don't you believe it?
Yeah.
Before he came on, when me and him talked, I said, we're just gonna keep it simple. We don't need to share no screens and do all that. We're just gonna have a general, basic conversation and talk about some main questions that people have. You know what I mean? I said, I figure if we got to sharing screens and shit and complicating shit, and let's just have this simple discussion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, good idea.
Montoya, you got a good mic over there. You got a good mic on Montoya.
Yeah, I bought one finally.
Yeah. So I really don't have much else to say, y'all.
I loved it.
I guess I'm gonna get ready to watch this Laker game. They get ready to play Phoenix. I paused it, and the Nets was playing Philly. I paused it. Now it was the fourth quarter, so I just paused it.
I could do it.
The Nets might look like they might take their second loss in a row.
Wow.
Man.
Kyrie Irving is tripping.
Yeah,
Kyrie Irving listening to people like Brother Sanchez and all these crazy folks.
I did, that's what I did. My show on Wednesday night was again 30-minute little short joint. I do 30-minute joints, but I was talking about the mandates in Kyrie Irving and just trying to help people distinguish and understand that these mandates are not some form of oppression, because the CEO also has the position to protect their bottom line, right? And so in protecting the bottom line, the CEO has a right to decide, well, this is how I keep the most people at work, so this is the choice I'm going to make. And I'm not, and then you as a worker can make a choice whether to follow it or not. But we take it as that the CEO who's making a choice as though they're making everybody else not have a choice.
Right.
No, both sides have a choice. There's no impression. There's no oppression in that. And then in particular for the Kyrie stuff, it's a law. It's a mandate by the law. So it's not even something that the NBA doing. In the NBA, you could be, just highlighting a couple things we talked about. You can still be unvaccinated. You just got to be tested in most places. But in New York and California specifically, the law. So it's not even something the NBA is doing. And Joy Taylor pointed this out on the Colin Cowherd show, and I agree with it. She goes, when he did that IG Live where he was saying that basketball was important to him still. He still wants to play and this kind of stuff, and making the point that he's choosing to make this issue bigger than basketball. And that's the truth. That's the truth. He's choosing to make this issue bigger than basketball. And I don't care if you agree or disagree with him, but that's the facts of what it is. But we're taking it like they're making Kyrie have to make this choice.
Like countries are losing money with sick people. Like NBAs, they're missing out. The team is missing out. Like for instance, James Harden and KD, they're kind of bothered right now.
Yeah, of course.
That their teammate is not there. You know what I mean? I know, like, this is just for an example. When I get my license for my cannabis delivery service, I'm going to need a manager to run the show, kind of. And as an employer, if she got sick, whoever's managing, that would be a hurt. I need her to be around. I don't need her to be sick. I need her to be vaccinated. You know what I mean? So employers and people who are running shit think like this.
Right.
They lose out on the bottom line, but the employees don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Just the common folk don't go.
Right, but we look at it as though they're imposing something down, and they're just making a choice too. Like everybody has a choice in it. It's not no impose in this situation. Like that's the reality, whether people want to look at it that way. The reality is there's a choice. And here's the other thing. For any company that has a bunch of employees like a Delta who made this choice way before the government mandated anything, like a Delta, because they were one of the first ones to put a mandate on their people, right? Well, if the vaccine was putting people at risk of being out, they wouldn't be putting this mandate. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, if the vaccine was actually hurting people like people are saying it is or could, then there wouldn't be no mandates if the risk was similar. Like once, like on the live, a few of my listeners, I saw them making comments. A few of my listeners, I brought them over here with us, and one of my live friends was talking about we're not being honest about all the people that the vaccines are hurting. And I'm like, well, if it was hurting this many people, you wouldn't see these mandates.
Right.
Because the NBA would be just as worried about all the people that's hurt from the vaccine as is hurt from the virus.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. Because if you're hurt from the vaccine, you can't play.
Right. And I like to be clear. I'm not saying that 0 people are hurt by the vaccine. That's not what I'm saying. But it's just, and I've talked about this many times, all medicines are rolled out with a risk profile. Everything is rolled out with a risk-reward profile. All medicines. And an example I always give is there are certain medicines that they will only give to you, the 3 of us, if we were on our deathbed during the surgery. Because the situation is this medicine can help maintain you long enough to get you through this surgery. But this medicine is so dangerous that there's no other time they would give you this particular medicine. And so that medicine is on the market, but it will be improper for any doctor to give it to you under any circumstance other than being in surgery. I'm just saying all medicines are done based on a risk-reward assessment. And vaccines have the lowest profiles, like the doctor agreed with earlier in the show, right? They have the lowest risk adverse profiles of all medicines. But the risk-reward is, and I'd like to give this example, is this. So, like, for example, the last flu season, just to put things in perspective. The last flu season, the last major flu season was 2019, right? Because of, coronavirus is kind of taking over. So 2019 was the last major flu season. 38 million people caught the flu in 2019. There were only 20,000 deaths. Only 20,000 deaths from the flu, right? And the flu vaccine ain't even that. The flu vaccine is in a good year. If it's 50% efficacy, that's considered a good year for the flu vaccine. It's usually 18, 20%, but only 20,000 people died. Now let's do a comparison. 1 year of coronavirus. The first year, because we're past a year now, but in the first year, 32 million people caught it. 450,000 people died. So now you have a reason, a risk-reward proposition for a vaccine. So while there will be people that have bad adverse effects even from vaccines, what is that number compared to the reward of saving 450,000 people? And here's the other reality for people that demonize the CDC. If the CDC literally just let 450,000 people die, we would be going, what the fuck is the CDC doing?
Right. Right. Well, CDC, what the fuck is wrong with you?
If they just say we ain't gonna do shit, we would go. Our CDC has went wrong. They ain't shit.
People need to get it. To be real about it, people just need to really just get on their knees and bow down and thank the CDC, the FDA, and all these organizations. You know what I mean? Everybody listening to me got food in their refrigerator and their closet right now, approved by the FDA.
Currently, the FDA
saved 1 billion lives.
Hey, currently, I think it's in the, I don't know what region it is, but literally there's a salmonella outbreak somewhere in the country right now. I don't know what region it is. I just saw this about a week and a half ago. There's a salmonella outbreak. 450 people that caught salmonella. I'm talking about, why do I know the number as a layman? Because that's how thorough our FDA is. They know about 450 people, and right now they're trying to figure out the origins. So I'm just showing you how. So you telling me an organization that's trying to figure out the origins of the salmonella so they can control it. Them same motherfuckers is now gonna give me a vaccine and kill me. Them motherfuckers. Hey, 2 months ago, I don't know if this happened in California, Chief X, but about 2 to 4 months ago, I couldn't even get no ketchup at McDonald's because there was a tomato issue a couple of months ago. I don't know if that happened in California.
Right.
But I pointed this out on another video. You're telling me the same organization that I can go to McDonald's can't get no ketchup because they worried about some ketchup killing me? It's gonna be the same organization that rolled out a vaccine to kill me.
Right.
I couldn't get no vaccine at McDonald's like a few months ago because they had an issue with tomatoes. They
be recalling food.
Right,
y'all ain't thankful that they recalled food, and then you didn't go buy that shit they recalled and died. I mean, like,
right. We couldn't get ketchup in McDonald's, Chief X. That's the same organization that's gonna kill me with a vaccine. Funny. You see what I'm saying? They're trying to save me from some ketchup, but they're gonna kill me with a vaccine.
There's no benefit in killing you or harming you or making you sick at all. The NBA, NFL, everybody gonna lose money.
If they trying to kill me,
money.
Check it out. If they're gonna kill me,
they need you healthy, sitting up, watching the game.
Hell yeah.
Buying the gear. Right. You can't buy no gear. You can't spend no money. You know what I mean? When you sick, ain't nobody wants you sick. In order, the country the world runs off the economy, making money.
And the more humans, the more money made.
Sick people and dead people are not spending money.
Exactly.
It's nobody trying to kill or harm you people.
Hey, again, there's life expectancy has went up every year since 1922 until last year. Well, now let me be specific in the United States. I like to give people correct information. about 3 or 4 years ago, we were having a 0.1 drop in life expectancy. That happened 3 years in a row. The scientists that care about that, they were going crazy about that, trying to figure out why there was a 0.1 drop in life expectancy 3 years in a row. They literally, the nerdy motherfuckers, they literally been trying to study and find out what the fuck is going on with a point, because for almost 100 years, it had never dropped. So they were worried about it when it was 0.1. This past year, it was a full whole year drop in life expectancy. But they know why this year. They know why it is this year. They still didn't figure out why there was a 0.1 drop a few years back. They were still trying to figure out what the hell was causing that. Like, that's how crazy these, like, we don't, like I'm saying, scientists that's trying to figure out why is there a life expectancy drop of 0.1. Now, a couple years later, coronavirus hit, and them same people is going to be on some, we don't give a fuck that the shit dropped a year. Like it don't make sense to understand how nerdy these scientists are. They so nerdy, they don't give a shit what the governments are saying. Fauci does, but we ain't talking about Fauci, Chief Ed. We talking about the nerdy motherfuckers that's trying to make a name for themselves in their field.
Right.
Not the scientists tied to the government. We ain't talking about them.
What's up, Unbiased? You all right over there, man?
Yeah, I'm just reading what's on the screen.
Yeah, I've been watching everybody's channel and them talking about the vaccines and stuff, and which is good and stuff. But I just really wanted to bring on a professional, you know what I mean? You know, I don't have answers to all these questions. Montoya and both of y'all seem very enlightened and informed about this vaccine topic.
I've been studying the fuck out of
way
it.
more than I am, but it's still always good to have a professional on and run our questions through him.
Absolutely.
Have him co-sign what we do or don't know.
Right. Yeah, right. I wouldn't want to do it no other way.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do no other way.
When I was telling people when I start my YouTube and stuff, when I start YouTube, in which I started, you know.
Yeah, you're doing good with it, man. Shout out to you.
I'm going to have professionals on. I'm going to have credentialed people on. I think we just have too many running off at the mouth people who's not qualified talking about shit, you know.
Yeah, you know that's how I do my show. I don't do I don't have a professional. I don't do the show. If it's not every topic, but a show that needs a professional, I won't do the show unless I have one. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes relationship stuff, I don't. But
yeah, I'm not trying to be the smartest man in the room.
Hell no.
I'm not on that trip.
Hell no.
I got y'all. Let me show y'all how. I'm not that kind of cat.
Hell no.
See, some of these cats think they multi-geniuses.
Right.
you know about every fucking topic.
Uh-huh.
You're a master of all.
which is crazy.
Well, what happens is, I mean, perpetual struggle is a hustle. So they put themselves in that position to make the money the way they know how to make money. You know what I'm saying? Because, people always lose sight of. They always talk about the money that's made with the vaccines, but don't really understand there's big money in conspiracy. Big money in that. Always has been, but more than ever now with the advent of YouTube and social media. There's always been money. I used to be like Dr. Wilson said in my early 20s. I think you said the same thing in your past, Chief X. I was a huge conspiracy guy in my early 20s. You know what I'm saying? Back then you had to buy books and read all this shit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It wasn't all on the internet, but I would buy the books and run around telling all my friends about all
them Illuminati books back in the 90s.
All that shit, man. I used to be all up in that shit, man. And now it's easier to get caught up. So I don't knock people, like Dr. Wilson said, I don't knock people for getting caught up at whatever. But when you just look at one part, you was on my show. We did a great show a few years ago talking about confirmation bias, and that's what people get lost in. I had a friend put up a post just a couple days ago that I wish I could quote him real good, but it was dope as hell. He was saying something to the effect of like how we allow our confirmation bias to determine like how smart we are, and basically just point out how dumb it is to, to equate your smartness to only listen to what you already agree with. Like that's the opposite of being smart, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm proud to say through conversations of people who was vaccine hesitant, a large part of them when they got vaccinated. I think a large part of my coworkers started talking that foolishness in the break room, and I was like to myself. But once I heard the information, I snapped. Oh, what's going on here? And I set them straight, and I stayed on them. And I think everybody's vaccinated there. And
Yeah, I get a lot of inboxes, people getting vaccinated. I've been for the whole year. That's why I keep with it. But mainly, like I said, I'm not caught up in, changing people's mind who are putting out misinformation on. I don't like those people because they're doing it intentionally. I don't like them, but I don't care about them. It's just a matter of some people, especially older people, they just needed to hear the correct information. And I've been able to do that very successfully myself where I'm from, where older people literally were scared to get it. I don't argue with them. I just share with them information they hadn't heard, and they get it.
Yeah, some people say that they're not anti-vax or pro-vax. I'm totally pro-vaccine.
Yeah, me too.
Once they say that, they're anti-vax.
Yeah, some people say they're not pro-vax or anti-vax, but I'm totally.
That's what all anti-vaxxers say. Well,
right. Most of the anti-vaxxers do say
that.
But I'm totally pro-vax. I'm pro-vaccine. So like it's not. People got short memories. It's not just about the coronavirus.
Correct.
We have other vaccines that have done well to humanity. And the reason why you don't see people walking around crippled and shit with polio all in Africa and America is because vaccine eradicated that shit.
Exactly.
Why would I be against that? Why would I be against people eradicating polio? My kids ain't never had no mumps, measles, and chicken pox like that. But when I was a baby, when I was a kid, I had chicken pox and mumps because vaccine was new at that time. When I was in 1969, I was born. You know what I mean? So I know vaccines has been one of the greatest inventions
in humankind
in mankind medical history.
Yeah, life expectancy.
Period. If you don't know that, then you're miseducated.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, life expectancy. If you just go back, you can go back and look at life expectancy for spans as they kept it or whatever, and you can see how much it increased after vaccines were advocated. And so what happens is like if there's an anti-vaxxer listening right now, they're gonna highlight that improved hygiene. They're gonna highlight these things are true or whatever. They try to highlight all these other things other than vaccines, right? They try to say that these are the reasons why life expectancy increased such. But they don't realize that the reason we had improved hygiene came from the exact same people.
Right.
Scientists was figuring out we needed to sterilize surgical truths. Scientists were figuring out we had to have more hygienes. Scientists were figuring out these vaccines help. So they try to separate and again cherry pick the science as if the hygiene stuff just came out of nowhere. No, the scientists were the one figuring out we need to have these improved things, and humans got better at being hygienic because humans by nature we some nasty motherfuckers. Yeah. That's why you have to teach your babies to take a bath.
Right.
Like by nature, we nasty as a motherfucker.
My son used to be nasty as hell. I used to force him to take a bath.
Yeah, I used to get beaten. I ain't gonna get in there.
I remember my son was a baby.
Right.
I guess his mother was babying him. Yeah, I ain't want no little softy. I must have put him in that tub in the sink and shit was dead. And said, "You gonna get used to this water, nigga."
I'm just saying, like we know to be clean now. We don't realize we had to be taught that shit.
Somebody put this statement up here. I want to address it. I think there's a difference between anti-vax and a vaccine hesitancy. I somewhat agree with you, but here's the thing. You have the anti-vaxxers and you have people who are with this vaccine hesitant about getting the vaccine. But you have to understand the only reason that they're hesitant is because they've been listening to the anti-vaxxers.
Right, which make them
anti-vaxxers.
No, it doesn't make them anti-vaxxer. We got to be fair to them.
Well, and the anti-vaxxers.
We don't want to call it. We don't want to call. We want to be correct. What T-Rex is saying, they are different, but Chief X is speaking to the reason why they're hesitant. But don't call them anti-vaxxers. That's not fair to them. That's not fair.
Okay.
Because the anti-vaxxers are often they're the intentional misinformation of people. They know better and lie. The vaccine hesitants actually believe the bullshit.
Right. They've been listening to anti-vaxxers and
Yeah,
following.
who are intentional in their lying.
In other words, people prefer entertainment. You know what I mean? So people in their research, they will prefer to listen to. Sometimes I say they prefer to listen to someone who's less educated than someone who's more educated.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like-
Well, the more educated person typically is going to speak above in general. Like most scientists. Most scientists they're not as good as Dr. Wilson, being real cool and laid back and layman with it. You know what I'm saying? The scientific mind, if you studied all this shit, you can't wait. Oh, you gonna have me on your show? They can't wait to tell you a bunch of scientific shit. You know what I'm saying? So they're telling it in a way that's above our understanding quite often. So yeah, you're gonna prefer the cat that's catering to your fears and sounding like you know what he's talking about, versus the scientist who doesn't know how to cater to you and just speaks above your head. It's all
I made sure to tell the doc, let's just keep the
yeah,
language.
perfect.
I
Yeah,
told him, let's keep the language simple.
yeah,
Okay,
perfect.
you're not talking to a crowd of other scientists. Like on his show, on his page, he has other scientists
It makes sense.
Then so he may use a different language.
Absolutely.
But that may be over my audience's head. I said, just let's keep it
Smart.
basic and have a general
Yeah,
conversation.
there seems to be a pattern with people who are vaccine hesitant, and when you go to ask them different questions, like what I do is I say, "How you feel about the government?" A lot of them seem to be anti-government, or "How you feel about white folks?" A lot of them hate white folks. So it's like a little pattern when you're vaccine hesitant. Other thoughts seem to be consistent with these same people.
That makes sense. Yeah, it makes
What's
sense.
up, Information Man Show? Hey, by the way, I'm gonna be on Information Man Show this Sunday,
Okay.
so that'll be a nice discussion.
What y'all talking about? You know?
Black and white Egypt.
Oh, okay. You know, I don't want to see. You know, I'm tired of that conversation.
I love it.
You kill it now. Let me give you props. You're killing the game with it, but you know. I told you honestly, I'm done with it. I love what you said. Yeah, I got Leslie. She's one of my followers. I had a lot of my followers was on here, brother. I appreciate them coming on. Leslie says I had.
I said that must be his follower.
Yeah. I got several of them. Yeah, several of them. Tennyson was on here. Leslie was on here. Troy was on here. I saw several of them make comments.
Leslie with her little cute.
Because I invited them. Over. Right before I came on, I sent the link out to your page, Chief X.
Okay.
Yeah, but she said I had mumps and chicken pox when I was a kid in the Caribbean, and so like that's the reality of. And this is something that people don't understand about herd immunity. I wish we would have had Dr. Wilson for this, but herd immunity, like it's almost like the body. The body is a beautiful thing in the way that it evolves, and so what happens is, like this is how it works. So with each generation, the vaccines that we've had in the past, they just get better with each generation. So like myself, I really was only exposed to chicken pox, right? But people that were born right before you, Chief X, they got exposed to chicken pox and measles. Then the 10 years before that, they would have chicken pox, measles, and experience the one that starts with an R, rubella or something. Rubella. Yeah. And so basically you just kept having these improvements on the vaccines and more people getting vaccinated. So then what happens is when herd immunity takes place, you see over 3 to 4 generations, you see them things minimize and damn near go away. And so I remember I said this. So what happens is vaccines are so good that they almost hurt themselves when we have to have a new vaccine pop up on the scene. And the reason they hurt themselves is because they've been so good and we haven't had these diseases in so long. People start thinking, oh, we don't need vaccines no more. So they actually work so good, they end up hurting themselves.
T-Rex said, bring some more fine sisters over here. Stop playing, man.
Hey, my man, Troy asked a good question.
Troy Moten, I seen you in the chat the whole stream long, and like
I want to answer this question when you get a chance. Go ahead, Chief.
Okay, so you put the phrase, the words confirmation bias up here, but Troy, come on, bro. All you did all chat long was put the numbers of the VAERS system up here.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, do you not know what confirmation bias means? That's what you've been doing all day
Right.
long, Troy.
Is there anything you agree with?
Well,
Right?
let
Like,
me answer this question before you go ahead and personally though. I just want to keep it. I want to go
let me-
broad with him. Go ahead.
okay, let me just say this. So, like,
I want to be fair to him.
confirmation bias. So, when I'm researching, sometimes I will research in a way where I'm saying I'm gonna pull up something that goes against what I think, so I can actually hear both sides. And then after I hear both sides, I use my logic and my honesty inside me and roll with that. Go ahead, Montoya.
So, so this is the perspective. And Troy, I've talked to Troy directly many a times, but I want to be clear. He said, "How do you know you're not suffering from confirmation bias?" So, when it comes specifically to this vaccine, since that was the conversation tonight, there's never been a time, Troy. You've met when you've talked to me many times. There's never been a time where I have not shared all the information in the study. Now, you've told me that there have been times you've cherry-picked studies. I'm talking to you personally. You've cherry-picked studies. You said because nobody's talking about that. You said because everybody else knows all the other stuff. And I always say, so at the end of the day, when people cherry-pick a study, I'm gonna go look hard at did they have confirmation bias. So when you ask me if I have confirmation bias, similar to Chief X, I intentionally go look up information that doesn't agree with me. Quite often, if you can admit, Troy, sometimes you share information that I've already heard. And the reason I've already heard is because I looked at it. But I'm always going to look at all the information. So looking at all the information gives you the best chance of not having confirmation bias. Because confirmation bias is when you do research, as soon as you find what you're looking for, you stop looking. So because I know what confirmation bias is, I intentionally look at all the information beyond even when I find something that confirms what I may have been looking for. I still look at the rest of the information. Confirmation bias, you stop once you find what you're looking for. And so quite often you'll go somewhere and be unaware of the other information. And, and it's not that nobody can know all the information. So there's plenty of times, and you know this, Troy, where I said, oh, okay, I don't know that. Let me go look that up. And there's been times I've come back to you and says, oh, I looked it up, Troy. Come to find out, you didn't tell me all the information, because I still share all the information every time. I never cherry pick information. So that's my long answer for how I feel like, for the most part, I try not to be stuck with confirmation bias. We're human. I still can make the mistake from time to time, but I'm so conscious of it that I try my best not to have confirmation bias. I've seen the information you're sharing, and you just disagree with the information I'm sharing. Like, you keep putting up the VAERS numbers while knowing that it's just a simple reporting procedure. It's so you put up the information, like Chief X said, in a confirmation bias way. I put up the VAERS information. I'll put up the same 14,000 deaths that you put up, and also put up how this report is done. You will put up the 14,000 deaths and won't tell how it's done. So you're using confirmation bias to report the information. I report the information as is. I don't change it. I don't say it's something that it's not. I report the information as is.
So you saying you saying he know about the VAERS system?
I know he knows,
so
he always reports it as if it's causal.
So he was intentionally miseducating Black people.
Yeah, which makes him, low.
You don't want to go that far, Montoya.
I mean,
I know the brother's sincere, but I always check him for reporting the VAERS without telling how it's reported. When I tell the VAERS, I report it exactly as it says.
And Troy Moden,
not using confirmation bias.
Troy Moden, from now on, if you're reporting VAERS as if it's an actual fact and that's just the real stats and true, you're doing something disingenuous and wicked.
Absolutely.
And hurtful to people. That's harmful. He's catering to people's fears to not want to get vaccinated. That's why I said that's low, because people are making terrible choices and they're dying as a result.
And here's the challenge I make to people like Troy is, okay, so they always focus on corruption and that the numbers are incorrect, because neither myself or Chief X because when it comes to any numbers, even scientifically when done, we're never saying that the numbers are 100%. That's not what we're saying. But here's the challenge that they can never accept. When I say, well, show me your studies that have been put through the methodology, the correct methodology that shows otherwise. And so they give these big assumptions about, well, there's one doctor, there's always a minority, it's always a minority opinion. There's one doctor that says, oh, it might be 5 times that. Okay. So basically, if you're saying the numbers we're saying are wrong, but you don't have no numbers to back up what you're saying either. So now it can just be whatever the fuck people want it to be. I'm never going to live in that world. I'm never going to live in a world where you just constantly tell me the numbers that we can all go look at that are out there publicly, scientifically. You can't just tell me they're wrong and then don't show me your methodology for why they're wrong. If you can't show me that, we ain't got shit to go by.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get up out of here, Montoya, and unbiased.
Sure.
Go ahead and watch this Laker game.
For sure.
Everybody subscribe to Mental Dialogue. Montoya Smith.
Appreciate
Unbiased Sports has his YouTube channel. That's the name of it. Right? Correct, Unbiased?
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I'm going to put it in the chat real quick. Can I do that before we go?
Yes, sir.
But
hey, and listeners and followers, I really appreciate you listening, following. Feel free to drop a Cash App if you like. And spending this Friday evening with us.
Yeah.
Hey, can you put? I guess it's in the private chat. I don't know if you can put it in the group chat for me real quick, Chief X, before we go. It looks like it's only to the two of you. I don't know if you can put it in the group chat. And I'm putting for tomorrow's show. Divorce, is it harder for men or women after divorce to date? That's tomorrow's show. So I'm putting that in the link to that in the group, in the private chat. Can you put it in the group chat for me, Chief X, before we go?
Let me see.
I just put it in the private chat. I don't know how to put it in the thing.
Private chat? I'm not even familiar with a private chat. What the?
Do you see any? Look over to your right and look at chat.
Yeah, there's a red notification.
Oh, okay. I see what you're
So can you cut and paste those into the public comments? Because I don't know how to do that. I think as a guest, I might not be able to do it as easy as you can.
Okay, where it says chat, I don't see where you put anything.
Oh man, it says I'm chatting with the host and other guests. Can you see it?
Oh, the private chat. Okay, I see.
So I want to put those in the public before we go. Because thank you for letting me come on and sharing with your group.
Gotcha.
So if you could just cut and paste those and put it out there on the public thing, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for having me on, man. I know I'm going to talk y'all to death tonight.
Nah, you definitely informational.
Yeah, I needed both y'all.
Love what you're doing with your YouTube and Chief X. I don't know if I told you that, but I definitely do.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it grow some more, and
now you doing your thing.
Keep bringing on some more professionals. I can't wait till I get this policeman on, Montoya. Matter of fact, I'm gonna have you on when I have the policeman on.
That'd be dope. I've done some dope shows with police officers. I've done like two. I had a white police officer once say, admit to racial profiling.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
I'm talking about, well, you say no doubt, but I bet you ain't nobody in media ever had a white police officer admit shit though.
What one officer?
I'm talking about there ain't nowhere on the internet that's got a white police officer admitting that shit.
Now,
Troy said, "Let him on." Troy, we about to close up. I would have let you on too.
He gonna wait till we about to close up.
Now he would have loved to have got on, but we closed up.
He should have said that earlier. I sure would have sent you a link.
Yeah, no doubt. It's all good.
You ain't gonna mess my Laker game up tonight.
I could dig it.
I'm about to roll me a joint and get down.
All right, appreciate you, Chief X. I'm gone.
Yeah, I appreciate both.
I gotta be ready for my show in the morning.
Peace out.
Hey, if you happen to wake up in time, I know you probably won't.
I know.
Catch the end of the show because you'll have some good thoughts on that. Is it harder for men or women to date after divorce? So if you happen to wake up, Call in at the end of the show.
You know, I may get up early.
If you do, I'm just saying if you do, call
man,
in real quick and say
I go
something.
to bed early, and if I get up early, I'm gonna come on.
Yeah, just call in real quick as a
The
caller.
UFC event comes on tomorrow, and it comes on earlier than usual.
Okay. So if you happen to catch it, just call in. Don't forget to press 1. Don't just call in. You got to press 1 so I know to let you on.
What's up, T Ben? That's my homie T Ben. Would you say this is the type of discussion I can rock with? I'm not always looking for edutainment. Yeah, right. So yeah. So T Ben, I don't know if you missed or if you just came on, but we had Dr. Wilson. His YouTube channel is Debunk the Funk with Dr. Wilson. I think everybody should subscribe. And we had him on answering questions. So I brought a professional on.
His response sounded like he might have been listening because he said it's a comment. It's something I can get with. It's not just an edutainment. So it sounds like he must have already listened. Because why else would he make that comment if he just jumped on? I
always appreciate T Ben.
Yeah,
hey fellas,
like
I'm out of here, man.
All right, for sure.
Unbiased. I'm out.